Anyone else? Because I wanted to see Riley's story.
Riley,
Because he's pretty good at it.
No, it is not.
Yeah, but he's good at
presentable.
writing.
I still have writing.
Or, yeah, Kyle's piece, I guess. So.
How is 2 pages?
Like I said, he's on par with me in
Actually,
terms
he
of
Yeah, I'm not-
requirements.
Oh yeah, he doesn't meet any of the requirements. But considering the only requirement was make 20 pages of something,
You
Right.
should have just said just like the letter A to this the pages.
I mean, I thought about it.
all right. So
At least for the last few pages.
who will win? Let's see who will win. Well, Brandon's beat.
Thank God.
It's Dury's not first this time. Congratulations.
Let's go.
So,
Cringe.
do you want me to read this, or do you want?
No, you read. It's already bad enough. Other people are reading it, so they don't need to hear me read it.
Waga, baba, bobo.
That's a cruel. That's a thing cruel than death.
That is not a tab.
What?
A race designed to
Index.
torture people.
It's
Index is not
called Joe Mongoose by Veilfisk. He didn't make the race, but he found it, and it was great. I'm gonna keep that open.
Let's say, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't think it was gonna be a Halo video. I didn't know what it was gonna be.
Yeah, it's a Halo video. Halo Reach Forge. Alright, so, gentlemen, let us begin. The clanking of armor and weapons fills the air as soldiers are seen running towards a gate, connected to an 8-foot-high stone wall that is slowly closing on them. Pick up the pace, men. If we don't make it to the gate in time, we're all dead. The man at the front of the called his words as his words seemed to reach the ears of those following, causing everyone to pick up their speed. None of them dared to turn around and see what's chasing them, not wanting to know what horror awaits them as if they were to be caught before they made it to inside the gate. Just as it seemed the gate was almost closed, something or someone stopped it for just a brief moment. This gave the men just enough time to slip inside the safety of the walls as the gates shut behind them. Everyone immediately rushing over to check them as the group of 4 fall onto their hands and knees while sucking air deep into their lungs. The intensity burning started to slowly dissipate. As the group of concerned
Looks bad, but can you read it, sir?
No. As the group of concerned onlookers, both civilian and guard, watch the 4 catch their breath, a small part within the sea of people can be seen moving closer until a man in black plate mail, brown A's, and brown flowing hair that extends just above his shoulders with a fair complexion is seen standing above the group of 4. Frederick, are you and your companions okay? I see you guys decided to bring the whole lot of them back with you, he yelled in an annoyed but compassionate tone, glad to see his friends alive, even if they did bring back unwanted guests. Well, Tobias, it wouldn't be bad if someone would have just followed the plan and waited till I had the device down before firing the flaming arrow. Things would have gone a whole lot better. The man named Frederick, a blue-eyed, blonde man who has his hair cut short with small traces of facial hair, his skin paler than Tobias's, responds to him with his own annoyed tone, his directed at another member of his group. Well, I'm sorry the shitty plan you made up didn't have a clear signal for when to fire the arrow. The man with a similar pale skin to Frederick's, green eyes and red hair, responds to Frederick, holding up his bow that had been snapped in 2, both pieces hanging on by the string. And now you owe me a new bow, as he states, as he slowly starts to stand, along with the others who had now caught their breath. Frederick scoffs as he shakes his head. I owe you nothing. It broke when you were running and tripped because you were careless. Well, Frederick, I would not have been running from one of them if your plan was actually worth anything, but now we only ever seem to fail whenever you come up with the plans. The petty argument continued back and forth until Tobias raised his hand, causing both of them to fall silent. Both of you knock it off. Now is not the time or place for your petty squabble. We must report back to Lord Lucan, tell him of your adventure. he remarked with a small smirk, walking along with them back through the crowd who had somewhat gone back to what they were doing, leading them towards a castle that sits above the city. You guys missed it. Lord Lucan and Lord Godric had a talk with each other about what to do about our current situation again. Tobias spoke, his words hinting at something the group may already know. Oh, and let me guess, they still haven't been able to come up with anything yet, have they? Just tossing the same ideas back and forth. The female of the group spoke, her skin tan with hazel eyes and red hair that tied into a braid that runs down her back. Tobias only needed to sigh to answer her questions, the others in the group letting out a collective groan as the woman spoke again. That is the 8th time they have met, and this is the 8th time they have failed to come up with anything. These truly are, I feel like, the end times. Tobias stops for a moment, bring the group to a stop as he turns towards the woman. Look, Agatha, I understand your frustrations, but this is not the time to lose hope. We have survived wars, famine, rebellions, and much more under the leadership of Lord Lucan. I know these are difficult times, more difficult than the Lord would have expected out of anything during his reign, but we must have faith in him. He will get us through this crisis, but only if we help him. He preaches, a stern look on his face as he speaks, his tone and words showing his admiration and patriotism for he has for his Lord and the kingdom as a whole. The four look at him and listen, their eyes watching him in amazement, while their ears grab at all his words and let them sink into their minds. They are almost encapsulated in his speech before he ends and continues towards the castle again, the four following him as their eyes start to move up toward the castle. The castle is smaller than most, having pointed roofs on each of the towers that are on the corners, which fly a flag of a griffin on top of each one. The stone used to build has been well maintained by all the groundskeepers on the grounds, the roof having been tiled with blue tiles. To most, the sight would be grand, but to those accustomed to such a style, it is seen as the more unimpressive variety of castles seen outside of the country. Still, it was a place that the Lord called home, and was the safest spot for him at the moment. Agatha looked over at Frederick, a bit of concern on his face as she sees now that he has blood on his armor. Frederick, is that your blood? She questioned as she pointed to the stain. Frederick followed her finger as he smirked a little and shook his head. No, it is the blood of one of those beasts that attack us. I managed to stab it before it had gotten the chance to do any real damage to me. He boasts, puffing his chest out a bit and holding his head a bit more high to try and impress her. She only let out a sigh, her look of concern being washed away as she smiled. Well, guess that means I don't get to kill you just yet, then, she said with a hint of amusement to her voice. Another sigh can be heard from the fourth member of the group, a tall, pale white man with a bald head and a dark brown, bushy beard, with leather armor covering most of his body. Oh, my lord, will you two get a room? You two are the most insufferable people I have ever met. He spoke in a deep, annoyed voice. I'm sorry, I can't get a deep voice. This is what you get. Frederick frowned as he stopped posing and continued to walk. Well, Ivan, I could say the same about you, but you would probably make my body into a stew. That rhymes. He responds, to which Egna fails at stifling a laugh and catches a glare from Frederick. What are you laughing at, criminal? You're lucky that Lord said he would trust you, letting you walk around with a weapon, let alone letting you be free from that cell. The statement causes Egna to stop laughing and glare right at him. Well, these spy crimes never got any of his friends killed, now did it not? He returns back with a slice of venom and sarcasm. Riley? Alright. Damn, everyone muted. No comments thus far.
You know, I did comment about you doing voices, but I forgot I was muted.
I'm listening, not necessarily. We're commenting.
I mean, I was curious. I was wondering because I never said you.
I'm interested what's gonna happen next.
Well, I mean, the "get a room, you two" is a very cliche line. That was mostly my one thought so far.
Yeah. It's probably not going to be the only one, I'm going to be honest.
Alright, shut your fucking mic off because you fucking have that car noises or whatever. Sounds like shit. Like your existence, rather. Shut up. Once they had arrived, the guards at the front door immediately opened the door to let them in, closing it behind them once they had all made it inside. The inside of the castle is pretty bland, a red carpet that leads all the way to the throne, sitting at the opposite end of the room, weapon racks lining both of the walls with multiple swords, axes, and warhammers sitting upon them. Further up the walls hung portraits of previous leaders of this kingdom, many being portrayed as if it were on the battlefield wearing brilliant ornate silver plate armor with a crown atop their heads, while others seemed to be presented in a more scholarly light, sitting at desk with books stacked next to them as they appeared to be writing something down on the pages in front of them. While many have had discussions and debates on which one of these individuals was the best king, everyone can agree that they have always done what's right for the citizens, both poor and rich alike.
Oh.
Very, strange kings.
Can they now?
As the group of five began to approach the throne, at the opposite side of the room, which is seen sitting a man with a mane of brown hair and a clean-shaven face, wearing fine clothes adorned with all sorts of fancy threadwork and elegant stitching, his skin the same tone as that of a golden oak tree, his deep green eyes gazing at them while they walk. Okay, guys, please just let me do that talking, and if he calls on you, just tell him what you can remember to the best of your abilities. Frederick quickly turned and said to his three compatriots before facing forward again. Tobias gives an apologetic look to Frederick as he stated, "Well, I hope you guys have at least something good to tell him. I unfortunately have other business to attend to, but tell me how the meeting goes." He then proceeds to break off, left from their group, and leave out of a side door to a different area of the castle. The four walked down the rest of the path until they were right in front of the king, each of them taking a knee in front of them before he tells just Frederick to stand. "Frederick, I heard of your team's speedy return. Apologies. I want to know how the mission went. Were you able to set off the device?" Lord Lucan asked in a deep, yet curious tone, his voice giving Frederick a calming yet uneasy feeling as he began to respond. "My lord, the mission was not a success. The device has not been successfully activated. In my hasty planning, I had forgotten to give a clear signal of when to fire and activate the device as I was spotted by the beasts. My careless planning had cost us an easy victory over the enemy, and I apologize," he says as he gives the Lord a bow. Egna looked up slightly at Frederick, a small smile on his face that he didn't try to blame him for the mistake that was made. Lord Lucan looked at Frederick and stood up from his throne in a piece of furniture that had been handcrafted by the finest oak, with gold lining and jewels sitting at the top of the seat. He carefully made his way over to Frederick and put his hand on his shoulder, causing him to look up at the Lord and see the soft expression on his face. "It is all right, Frederick. You and your team are safe, and that's more than a success to me. Now we will try again, but for now you will need a nice meal and a comfortable bed. I will have you guys set up in the guest house, just outside to the left," he says as he turned and started back toward his throne, the four of them now standing and being led to where the guest house was located. Egna takes a moment to walk beside Frederick and nudges his arm a bit to get his attention. "Hey, thanks for not blaming me back there. I know I was supposed to be the one to fire and set it off," he says as Frederick sighs and shakes his head slightly. "No, it's fine. I did realize I never gave you any idea of when to fire, so I can't put any blame onto you," he said while keeping his gaze forward, letting a deep breath into his lungs. "Also, if you still want me to, I can help pay to get the bow repaired." Egna has a bit of a perplexed look on his face, while looking at Frederick while he continues to speak. "You know, a way to say sorry for almost getting you killed back there," he finishes as he looks down at the other man, standing a few extra inches over him. Egna thinks for a moment before shaking his head. "Thanks, but it'll be okay. I'll just pay for it myself, considering you taking the blame as your apology to me," he states as they all now enter the guest house and immediately start to get baths going, deciding to let Agatha go first out of respect and playing rock, paper, scissors on the order they would take their baths. After everyone had been cleaned and given clean clothes to lounge in, they had their weapons and armor taken to the best armorer and blacksmith in the kingdom, a warm meal ready for them to dig into as a reward for coming back safe. After their feast... What?
Why are they sending their armor and weapons to a blacksmith? Are they broken?
That's just supposed to mint within the castle. I kind of just
I would assume
messed
it's
that
for
up.
like maintenance or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see, that's a good thing you do yourself.
Well, yeah, but there's probably people better than them at it. I'm gonna be honest,
that's
it's just a
expensive.
shit piece in general. So
I was just curious if it was broken or if it were. Okay.
After their feast, they all settled down for the night. Two of them split between 2 rooms within the home as they all soon fell asleep, their exhaustion catching up with them as they lay on their beds. The next morning, they all had a big breakfast before being given their weapons and armor back, and told that they were to see the Lord at their earliest convenience. They took a moment to put on their gear, afterward making their way toward the throne room, where the Lord can be seen sitting and waiting for them to arrive. Once they are all in front of him, he tells them to remain standing, as the matter is urgent and will allow the what would be seen as rude gesture to slide. As he began, they couldn't all help but notice a rare quakiness to his voice, as if he was nervous or anxious. I have urgent news regarding our neighbors to the east of us. They have all been wiped out by the beast. The whole village wiped out. I want you to go check it out and see what caused them to be overrun so easily. The defense we had in place should have been enough, the Lord said as he regained his composure, trying to calm himself down. If you find any survivors, you must bring them back here. We must eliminate the risk of losing more soldiers as much as possible. He tells them as he sends them on their way, making sure they are given anything they need. Well, the Lord is counting on us, so let's not disappoint him, Frederick said as he walked in front of the other 3, walking backwards and facing them while speaking. Frederick, let's just focus on us for now. We're about to be traveling through wastelands with these deranged beasts everywhere, ready to pop out at any moment. Ivan spoke as he had his maul propped onto his shoulder while walking. Besides, if you try to lead us again, we might die, so how about we just travel as a group rather than pretend to be a battalion of soldiers? He finishes as they stop in front of the gate, waiting for it to open as they take in deep breaths to steady their nerves. Once it was open wide enough for them to get out, they exited, the gate quickly closing behind them as they look out upon the rolling hills, the sky dark with the stench of death immediately hitting everyone's noses. Man, I hate that smell, complains Agna, as he knocks an arrow on his newly repaired bow, getting ready to attack the first unfriendly thing they came across. Never gets better, does it? Agatha asks rhetorically as she keeps her hand on the hilt of her short sword as ready at a moment's notice. Let's get moving. I don't want to be outside any more time than we have to, Frederick says as he starts to lead everyone east toward the neighboring village. All of them keep their eyes peeled, moving quiet as possible so they don't draw attention to themselves. After hours of careful travel, they find a small abandoned farmhouse with dying crops in the fields in front and behind the home. Let's get inside and take a break. We've been traveling for hours, Ivan suggests, reaching down to rub his feet some. My feet are killing me, and I know they've got to be killing you too. I'm gonna just translate that as. He says to Frederick as he nods in agreement, yeah, I agree. It would be the safest option to rest now and wait for a moment. He says as he leads them in front of the home, slowly pushing open the unlocked door as they slowly get inside and close the door behind them, locking and barricading it as well. Frederick takes a glance out the window and happens to note that the sun is slowly going down. Okay, we rest here for the night. Looks like the sun is starting to go down and I already hate fighting these things during the day, he remarks as he moves away from the window and sits on a dilapidated couch, a small sigh of relief escaping his lips as he leans back, his head back slightly. Doing all right, he asked to no one in particular, while looking at the other 3, waiting for a response. I'm okay, feet hurt a bit, but that's about it, Agna replies as he takes off one of his boots and starts to rub his foot some. Not the worst I felt, chimed in Ivan as he leaned his maul against the wall next to him, taking a seat at the table in what was to be assumed the kitchen. I'm doing fine, Agatha added, her response shorter as she kept an eye out the window, making sure they were not followed by anyone or anything. You know, Agatha, I get that we spend most of our days on the line between life and death, but you don't always need to keep an eye out. If we were being followed, we would have been attacked by now, Agnes says as he looks up from rubbing his foot, putting his boot back on and repeating the process for his other foot as a grumble could be heard from the female. That's not true. I could be just waiting for night to fall or when we are off guard. She replies, her head not moving to look at Egna as she continues to watch outside. Egna simply shrugs as he gets up and starts toward a set of stairs. So, who wants to check out the upstairs? He asked aloud as he stood and waited for a response. After a few minutes of silence, he simply nods and turns to face the staircase again. Guess I'm going up myself then, he says as he slowly started up the stairs. Creaks and groans could be heard as the old rickety wooden steps warping slightly as he continued up the stairs. Once he got to the top, he took a few seconds to take in the surroundings of the second floor. The musty scent was the first thing he noticed, his nose wrinkling a little as he continued to walk down the hall. The doors to a few other rooms had been forced of their hinges, scattered into pieces on the floor as if they had been broken down violently, the stains of dried blood covering the floors as the walls of the room made Egna feel a bit uneasy about staying in the farmhouse, but continued to the last room in the hall, this one still having the door intact. As he slowly made his way towards the door, he pulled his dagger out of its sheath, ready to defend himself as he grabbed the knob and slowly turned it. The squeak of the knob and the hinges loud in his ears as he slowly pushed the door open, only getting a quarter of the way before being stopped by something. Egna looked through the crack to see what was blocking the door, only seeing a black mass laying in front of the door. Not being able to surmise what it was, he tried to simply force the door open, realizing he had messed up as he heard the huffs and growls of something that had been woken up abruptly, slowly moving back away from the door, while keeping his eyes glued to the door, making sure that whatever it was didn't burst out and attack. His plans soon fell apart as the sound of a pan hitting the floor, his eyes widening as the door at the end of the hall burst open violently to show a large black figure on all fours, its frame taking up most of the doorway as its eyes fell into Egna. Its eyes turned from their natural white color to a deep red, and an almost ear-piercing screech filling the hall as it charged at high speed toward Egna. Egna barely had time to react as he dove out of the way, the beast crashing into the wall and falling a few inches onto the stairs before charging at Egna again, this time managing to tackle him and attempting to savagely bite and scratch at his vital areas.
Oh, is that?
I was reading the chat because I saw y'all had been making comments. I just saw it now. Egna managed to avoid most of the slashes, but the beast managed to catch his arm, causing the man to let out a loud cry of pain before the beast was hit off at him. Ivan and being seen standing in its place as he quickly grabbed Egna and pushed him behind himself as the beast stood up again and started to charge at Ivan, the man swinging the maul above his head and bringing it down fast. Just as the beast reaches him, the maul connects with its head, causing it to seemingly shrink back down into its neck as it fell over dead. Holy shit, Ivan. Oh, holy shit, thanks, Ivan. Egna thanked the larger man through his gritted teeth, holding his bloodied arms as Ivan started to help him bandage his arm. Don't worry about it. Can't have anyone dying just yet, he responded as he tied the bandage once he had had the wound wrapped up. At this moment, Frederick and Agatha ran up the stairs, their weapons in hand, as they now see the now dead beast on the floor. Holy, you okay, Egna? She asks as she makes the bandage a bit more comfortable on his arm. Yes, I'm alright. I would have been dead if Ivan hadn't stepped in, he said as he looked back at the beast. I can't believe that one of those things was in here, he commented as he slowly stood up, still holding his arm, with small tears prickling the edge of his eyes from the immense pain he still shooting up his arm from the bite. Him and the other three walking back down the hall toward the room where the beast emerged. Everyone now, except for Egna, having their weapons drawn and on full alert after the incident. I think you should stay in the back, Egna, especially since you're new wounded and don't have your weapons. Egna nods slightly, slowly making his way to the back of the group as they are now standing in the doorframe. A disturbing silence falls over the group as they stare into the horror of the room. In the far right corner was a pile of dead corpses, all the victims being different sizes, races, and ages. The sight alone being too much for anyone to comprehend, the smell was even worse. Agatha took a step away from the door and the group to her nose being overloaded with the horrendous stench of the bodies gave. Lord almighty, this is sick, Frederick said in a disgusted tone. Ivan and Egna nodded, nodding as the three walk further in, Agna coming in behind them while they block out the smell as best she can. While trying to block out the smell as best she can. Inside the room wasn't much better. A few more bodies and body parts scattered around with the phrase Lord of Nothing written in blood on the wall. Do you think the people who lived here wrote that? Or Agna asked out loud, his voice trailing off as a terrifying thought entered the mind of everyone in the room. Do you think these things are intelligent creatures? Frederick questions as they all leave the room, the smell starting to be too much for them to handle as they went back downstairs to get as far as possible from it. We're about almost halfway through. Ivan was the first one to try to answer the question Frederick had presented. Well, they do hunt in packs usually, and it's been reported they even have coordinated attacks on the first few villages to fall. Agna looks up at them as if something in his head clicked, and those were the villages that produce most of our food and lumber. They attacked those first, as if they were trying to cut off our supply line, he says as he sucks air through his teeth, while still holding onto his arm, which is turned, the once white bandage into a bloody mess. Agatha coming over, starting to help him properly get his wound cleaned up and patched up. This is true. We've lost more men to starvation than the beasts, and it's been getting harder and harder to keep up with repairing the barricades to keep them out. They know what they're doing. The real questions are what are they? Where did they come from, and what do they want? She asks no one in particular, as she starts to wipe most of the blood off and trying to get a good look at the wound. It was a vicious-looking mark, the teeth seemingly ripping into the flesh rather than a clean bite. Good lord, that looks horrendous, commented Agatha as she did her best to stitch the wound back up, not being able to do much due to the lack of medical supplies in their possession. Well, I did my best, but it's still pretty bad. Try not to go on your own again and let us do most of the fighting, she said to Agna, as he simply nodded while the other two set up a small area for them to sleep, using some extra blankets given by Lord Lucan to make an area for them to lay on. Once set up, everyone but Frederick started to get settled for the night, deciding he would take first watch. The night goes by without any more issue, everyone feeling rested as they could from sleeping on the floor. They all quickly pack up the blankets and left the small farmhouse, wanting to get this mission over with so they can get Agna proper treatment for his wound. They keep a more vigilant eye out as they continued their travel due to yesterday's encounter. After about halfway through their travel, Agna asks if they can have a moment to stop, saying he thinks to take a small rest. The other three can already see that Agna is pale and profusely sweating, also taking note that he seems to be struggling to stand and walk. Hey, Frederick, I think we should head back now. Agna is not in any condition to continue this mission, Agatha said as she looked toward the male, who only shook his head. I agree, he looks bad, but once we get to the village he can rest and relax while we search, he responded, causing a look of disbelief to form on Agatha's face. Frederick, you can't be serious. He can barely walk and stand. On top of that, his face is pale and he's severely sweating. We need to take him back now. Before they could argue anymore, Ivan stepped between them. Enough, both of you. I will take him back to get treated, and you two can continue to the village, he said harshly to both of them. Can't believe you two arguing about a fellow comrade. You should be ashamed. Once Agna had said he was fine to start traveling again, was when Ivan walked over. Hey, change of plan. Me and you are going back. You are in no condition to continue traveling, and you need proper medical attention, Ivan stated. Agna starting to speak, but instead simply sighing and nodding. No use arguing with you, Ivan, he said in response with a hoarse voice, both of them starting to head back as the other two look. You ready? Other two look forward. Okay, you ready, Agatha? He asked, as she only nodded in response. Most of them now starting toward the village again. Frederick and Agatha were silent for most of the way before the male sighed again. I'm sorry for actions earlier. I should have been more considerate toward our fellow companion, he said to Agatha, causing her to have a small surprised look. Well, you're never one to apologize, especially in regards to how you treat the criminal, she mocks a little, trying to keep the mood light, which causes Frederick to have a small smirk, which quickly faded as he smoked again. Well, I don't wish that type of a fate to anyone, but I now also know that there is not much that can be done for him. We have no idea how this plague works, other than being bitten has a chance of turning someone. It all depends on if he's strong enough to fight it, or if it will overtake him. He tells her with a look of sorrow on his face before taking a deep breath. Anyway, we should continue. The quicker we check on this village, the quicker we can get back and check on Agna. He finished their chat as he started again, Agatha following close behind him. Now, we're almost there. Ivan and Agnes' trip back started out fine until Agnes started to feel weak again, soon having to stop it and take a break. Ivan looked at the other man sternly as he also took the moment to sit and rest. So, how are you feeling? He asked as Agnes wiped the sweat off his brow, taking a few moments before speaking. Feels like my whole body's on fire. My legs feel weak, he said through labored breaths, Ivan letting out a sigh as he rubbed the bridge of his nose. This isn't good. If we keep having to stop, you would either be dead or turn into one of those beasts, he commented in a stressed tone, looking over at Agnes to check on him. His skin had gone pale again and his breathing heavy, sounding as if he was struggling for air. Hey, Agnes, I can carry you back the rest of the way. We'll be able to take less breaks. Agnes smiled slightly as he nodded his head. Thank you, Ivan. I appreciate your kindness. Let me finish casting my breath and then we can continue back to the castle. Ivan nodded as he also took the time to rest and get himself prepared for the journey ahead. All right, let me know when you're ready to go, he responded as he also kept watch for beasts or other dangers. After a few more moments, Agnes was ready to go, Ivan moving and kneeling down in front of him. The man then climbed onto his back, and they started back to the castle again. Frederick and Agatha had grown closer to the village, using the road signs as they came to a four-way intersection. Well, according to the signs, we have to cross through the middle and continue down that left road, Agatha commented, pointing out the route and the signs to Frederick. All right, should we just try to be quiet about it or be quick about it? Agatha looked at the mail and just shrugged. I'd prefer we be quiet about it, but I'll follow your lead. She responded to him, Frederick thinking for a moment before looking both ways on the road to see if they were clear. Okay, I say we just run to the other side so we can get into the ditches on the other side. We're clear, so just be fast and we'll make it. He told Agatha, both them immediately running across as the words left his mouth. As soon as they made it into the ditch, they crouched down and took a... Apologies. Oh, there's more notifications in the chat that I want to read. Alright. Are we okay? Did anything see us? Agatha asked as Frederick climbed to the top of the ditch and peeked over to check, looking both ways again just to see empty roads. We're fine. Nothing's out there, he told her once he climbed back down into the ditch, both of them starting on the last stretch of road towards the village. So, I have a bit of a personal question. Frederick, is it okay to ask? The female looked over at the male as they walked. Noticing the intense look on his face, he looked more serious and determined about this specific mission than any of their previous ones. Frederick, you okay? Agatha asked as she tapped his shoulder, causing Frederick to snap out of his trance for a moment, just to look over at her. What do you need? She looked at him with slightly concerned at his response. Did you not hear me? Are you okay? You seem more serious than usual. There's something about this village that you didn't tell everyone. She saw a barrage of questions out of now stopping them both to talk about what seems to be bothering him. Frederick took in a deep breath, preparing himself to stop. Well, I don't know why you would need to know this, but just to ease any suspicion you might have, I'll tell you this. This village we are going to is where I was born and where I was raised. I'm taking this more serious because I know the people who lived here and I'm preparing myself for the worst case scenario, he told her as he looked her in the eyes. Agatha seeing the pain in his eyes as he told her this. She knew it was probably not best not to pry further, and she simply nodded. Oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have asked. Frederick simply sighed and shook his head. No, it's fine. You were concerned about me, and I appreciate the kindness. However, we should continue. I don't want this to drag out any longer than it has to be. He told her as she nodded and they continued. Agatha occasionally kept peeking over at Frederick to make sure he was fine. After a few more miles, they made it to the outside of the village, already smelling burning flesh and death in the air as they peeked out from the ditch to check the road and entrance to the village. The sight was worse than the smell, Agatha almost gagging as she had to look away for a moment. Frederick looked over at the female and rubbed her back a little, trying to provide some kind of comfort to her as he kept his eyes open to make sure nothing crept up on them. There were charred bodies of all sizes melted together from the flames that started from torn banners and knocked over fire pits. The bodies appeared to have been ripped apart and mangled by the beasts, as well as arms and legs thrown about the area, with some bodies only being a torso. "This is sick. We need to stop these beasts at once," he declared quietly, as Agatha seemingly steadied herself, turning to face the massacre again, as she was still quite disgusted by it. "Lord, this is horrible. None of the people deserve this fate." They both then continued into the village to investigate further. Frederick and Agatha soon noticed the same patterns of bodies with missing parts and gruesome slashes deep in them. "Dear Lord, is there anyone left alive?" the female commented as she felt her stomach knot even more. After a few more feet, they hear and see some of the boards of a destroyed house get knocked over. Frederick noticing something moving in that direction, as well as and pointing it out to his partner. "Be mindful. I saw something moving over there," he stated as Agatha drew one of her short swords ready for a possible encounter from one of the beasts. As they drew closer, they were shocked to find a small, shivering child trying to hide behind a few crates. Ivan had made it back to the road that led to the farmhouse, Agnes still on his back, and recovering slowly. "Thank you again for this, Ivan. I will always be in your debt," he said. Being able to speak without having to stop every few moments to take a breath. "No problem, Agnes. Be sure you're keeping your eyes out as well. Better to have two sets of eyes watching out," he responded as he continued to walk, adjusting Agnes on his back again with a grunt. We'll have to stop soon, however. Can't carry you forever," he said as he looked back at his companion, his face retaining its color and his breathing more normal. "So it seems if you are simply resting, you could somewhat fight the infection then." Agnes nodded slightly as he took a quick span of the area, looking down at Ivan as he began to respond. "I do admit I do feel slightly better, but I still feel like the inside of my body is on fire, and I do still feel really weak. Moving for extended periods also makes me feel out of breath," he told Ivan, able to give a more clear explanation of his symptoms. "Well, here, I'm going to stop for a moment and rest. Let me set you down." He took great care while setting his partner down before sitting across from him, taking the opportunity to loosen his boots a little and let his feet rest. He let out a sigh of relief as he looked over at Agnes. "So what does Frederick mean when he calls you a criminal?" he asked the other, which catches the other off guard, taking a moment to himself to compose his words. "Well, that's a bit of a blunt question, but since you asked and you're being generous enough to carry me, I'll answer. I was hired by some treasure hunter to steal the necklace of Rahelman. It is a heirloom passed down through the Lord's family. The story behind the necklace is that it is supposedly some kind of protection for whoever wears it. Protection from diseases and infections of any kind. Would be funny if it was true, but I doubt it. I accepted because the money would have kept me fed for weeks," he explained as he leaned back against the earth behind him, taking a deep breath as he continued to explain. "I was so close to escaping with it, but I got too cocky and caught by the guard. I got thrown in jail for a few weeks before I was brought before the king. He told me I'd be forgiven my crime if I joined a special group he was forming. I accepted because it was better than rotting in jail, which is how we all met, and then you know the rest," he finished as he looked at Ivan, who was watching, paying attention to him, listening to every word he spoke. "So now I know why Frederick treats you the way he does now, at least," Ivan said as he slowly got up and stretched, making sure to tighten his boots, and helps Agnes onto his back. "But for now, let's keep going. I'm going to try using the Carlo Dark to get us back," he stated as he started to move again. "Oh, apologies." A face of concern painted on Agnes' face as he looks down at the men. "Are you crazy? I'll be fine for one more night. We should not risk being outside at night," Agnes exclaimed quietly, before knowing that his condition would only hinder Ivan if they were to be caught by a pack of beasts at night. "It's fine, Agnes. I know we are halfway there by now since we are back by the farmhouse. All we have to do is keep going this way and be able to see the fire on the walls of the city surrounding the castle," Ivan explained to the male, trying to calm him down as he adjusted Agnes a little as they continued through the ditches and huge amounts of brush by the road. There's more messages in the chat. Alright. Oh, Cal left. That's crazy, bro.
I guess the stream like kicked him or something after his internet died and he just
I have no idea.
got out of the mood, I guess.
Well,
But it's whatever.
it's been enjoyable.
I appreciate it, I guess.
It is getting hard to fucking keep saying all this, though.
Yeah.
Talking for fucking 13 pages straight. Let me get some water. Alright. He would occasionally peek his head out to check road signs and make sure that they were not being followed by anything malicious. Hey, Agna, make sure you keep... Wait, okay. I had to make sure I wasn't just going back or something. Hey, Agna, make sure you're keeping an eye out as well. I don't want anything sneaking up on us while I'm peeking out onto the roads, he said as he brought his head back behind the bush and continued walking. Agna held his thumb up in his view to show he understood. As they continued walking, Ivan started to feel an uneasy feeling growing in his stomach, starting to feel his breathing going shallow for a moment before he recovered. Hey, Agna, did you feel that? He asked as he saw his companion simply throw up another thumbs up. Ivan felt confused by this, as he knows Agna would usually say something, since he always liked to talk. Agna, you okay? Answer me with a yes or no, Ivan almost demanded as he heard Agna take a long breath, starting in a whisper. Don't stop moving until we get to the city halls, but keep going at this pace. We're being followed. Frederick and Agatha look in shock at the child as they both rush over to make sure she's not hurt and offer her what water and rations they may have left. Good Lord, are you all right, child? Agatha exclaimed as she brushed the hair out of the girl's face to see what she looked like. A pale color with light blue eyes. She also took note of the bangs under her eyes. The blank look on her face, and became concerned with what horrible events she may have witnessed. Shit, Frederick, she doesn't look well. We need to get her back to the castle fast. Do you know any shortcuts back? She asked as he checked to make sure they hadn't attracted any unwanted attention. None that make the trip any shorter, but that can give us a better cover and making it easier than trying to walk through the ditches and the brush on the sides of the road with a child. He responded as he looked back at both of them. Agatha nodded as she quickly and carefully picked the child up and turned back toward him. All right, well, let's do that then. I'll follow you then, but if we run into anything, you'll have to take care of it, she said as Frederick simply started walking back toward the western part of town. Don't worry, I'll take care of anything that comes close to us, he triumphantly stated as he led them down into a ditch and walked a few feet before climbing up into where the wooded area starts and helping Agatha and the child up before they started to follow a small dirt trail that was covered on its sides by foliage. Nice secret path, decent amount of cover, barely any leaves, just have to watch the brushing up against the bushes and stuff a lot. Frederick told Agatha as they walked, the enthusiasm in his voice causing the female to have a slight smile on her face. Well, I admit you surprise me sometimes, Frederick. You're serious and vigilant one moment, and then you show excitement and passion about something the next. You seemingly just switch personalities at any moment. She told the male as she still made sure to keep an eye out for anything that might sneak up on them, as Frederick gave out a little chuckle. I get that quite often, actually. The way I see it is whenever we get sent on missions, I'm always thinking of how to carry them out and get everyone back safely. I go into this trance where I'm trying to plan for every possible outcome and try to plan everything. Once we're not in any obvious danger that I know of, I can relax and be more open to people, he explained as he looked back to both of them to check on them, Agatha looking him in the eyes for a split second before they both quickly look away, a pink tint on both their faces as they remained quiet for another few hours of the walk before they made it back to the farmhouse, deciding they would stay here again this night and finish up the rest of the trip in the morning, as the sun was getting low and they felt it would not be wise to travel at night with a child. After they made their way inside and barricaded the door the same way they had the previous night, Agatha sets the child down on an old set as she tries her best to set up a comfortable sleeping spot with blankets they had before setting her down. The child instantly falling asleep again, as Agatha again moved some of her hair in her face. I feel bad for the child. Who knows what she has seen? She said as Frederick moved beside her and also looked down at the child, shaking his head slightly as he looked at the bruises and scratches on her arm. She's definitely a fighter, that's for sure. She survived for 2 days on her own with who knows how many of those beasts roaming around her, commented as he laid down next to the child, then stretched before starting to fall asleep. You got first watch. Wake me up when you start feeling tired and I'll take over. He then slowly closed his eyes as he started to drift to sleep, tired mentally and physically from everything today. Agatha gave a small smile as she waited up until she knew for certain he was asleep, leaning over and giving him a small peck on the cheek before getting up and taking a seat at a nearby window, taking one final long look at Frederick before she looked out the window to start her watch. Ivan had not stopped after what Egna had said to him. Seeing that it was almost pitch black out, he let out a small groan of discomfort. Do you still see it? Do you think lighting a torch would keep it away? He asked as Egna took a quick look, trying not to make what he was doing obvious as quickly looked back forward. Yes, it is, and while I would think it would keep it at bay, it might also draw more of them to us. Then it won't even matter at that point, he says as he looked at Ivan concerned. Okay, I know it's not easy to carry a person for long periods of time. True that, fella. Ivan simply grunted at the response as he adjusted Egna on his back while walking. I'll be fine. I've been following the signs and we're almost there. Do you think you could run if I set you down once we make it to the edge of this ditch? He asked as he looks back slightly at Egna, the male simply nodding his head. Yeah, I should be well enough to make that run, he stated as they crept closer to the end of the final ditch, peeking his head out slightly to see the torches and fire pits of the city in the distance. Okay, I'll set you down once we make it up, and then run. Then you run, and I'll make sure whatever it is doesn't chase us, Ivan said as he slowly climbed his way out of the ditch and set Egna on his feet, both of them bolting straight to the gate as they both heard rapid rustling behind them. Keep going, Egna, I'm right behind you, Ivan called out to the male in front of him, getting his maul ready for a quick attack as he turned and got ready. However, once he turned around and saw and all he saw was a deer had run out of the woods and just stood there, watching the both, as Ivan simply stared at Egna. I'm going to kill you, he mumbled as he started to walk to the city. Ivan soon stopped, however, once he felt the same uneasy feeling crop back under his stomach, causing him to turn and see a beast jump out from the woods and maul the deer that was in front of him, giving him enough time to turn and make a run for the city gate, seeing that they had let Egna in and closed the gate. Hey, get ready to open the gate again, Ivan shouted, the gates on the walls letting the ones by the door know to be ready, while unfortunately getting the beast's attention, causing it to screech and charge at him. Ivan looked back at the beast and tried to pick up his pace, trying to make it to the gate before the beast was on top of him. As he drew closer to the gate, he saw them slowly open it, ready to jump inside before his hopes were dashed as the beast tackled the male to the ground. Ivan struggled with the beast, having just enough strength to hold his arms back, but knowing he couldn't hold him for long. After only a few moments, he felt his strength leaving him, ready to accept his fate, when he heard a sickening sound, followed by the whimper of a beast, as Ivan looked at Egna at the gate, holding a bow for a few moments before it slips out of his hands. Hurry! He called out in a weak tone, Ivan gathering one final burst of strength as he shoved the beast off him and ran into the gate, the guards immediately shutting it as he falls onto his hands and knees, his whole body feeling like jelly as he soon collapsed and passed out. Egna following shortly after, as the last thing they both see is Tobias running toward them with a handful of men and 2 small carts. The next morning, Agatha was woken up by Frederick, slowly getting up and sighing as she took the moment to stretch her limbs out. So are we still continuing through the woods? She asked in a tired voice, the male nodding as he carefully moved the child off the blankets onto a mostly clean couch. Yes, I think it's the safest option for both of us, he states as he rolls up the blankets and puts them into his bag. You can try and be careful. Let's let her sleep as much as possible, he told Agatha as she nodded and made sure all of her gear was in order before slowly picking up the child in her arms and waiting on Frederick. After a few moments, Frederick looked at Agatha and nodded. All right, I'm ready to go. Frederick told her as they both left out the front door, Frederick leading her back into the woods and onto the trail. We should be able to make it back before midday, hopefully. I hope Ivan and Egna made it back. Frederick kept his gaze on his surroundings. Agatha adjusted the child some as she let out a small sigh. As do I. I hope they are able to help Egna with his infection. I don't want to have to kill him as one of those things, she said. She also kept an eye on the surroundings. They didn't have much to say to each other, during this walk, mainly wanting to be quiet so the child could sleep, but also because they didn't know what to say. They both knew they were ready to be back at the castle, wanting to sleep in a warm bed and take a warm bath to soak all the grime and sweat off their skin. After hours of silent travel, they saw the city gates and a dead beast covered in arrows left in the middle of an open field. Lord, what happened here? Frederick asked to no one in particular as they walked out of the woods and past the corpse of the beast. Hope nothing horrible has happened. Agatha commented as they approached the gates, knocking it and slipping in once they had opened the gate. Why is there a dead beast outside? Agatha asked a guard as she handed the child over to Frederick, who was heading towards the castle to have her checked on by more professional medical workers. Oh yes, your other two friends made it back, and they brought that thing with them. Good thing your one boy was able to shoot off an arrow and stun the beast long enough for the big fellow to push it off and get it. We then just peppered it with arrows until it stopped moving. Agatha looked slightly concerned as she put a hand on the man's shoulder. Were either of them hurt? The boy had his arm wrapped up when they had arrived, but other than that, they seemed fine. He responded as she let out a sigh of relief upon hearing the news that the other two were not seriously injured or killed. Oh, that's good news. I'll head that way now, thank you. She then took her leave and headed towards the castle, taking the time during the walk to try and unwind. After everything they had seen, she started to feel all her emotions burst out, starting to silently cry to herself as the image of destruction from the village was clear in her mind. After a few more minutes of walking and silently crying, Agatha was standing on the front steps of the castle, wiping her tears and trying to calm herself as she slowly walked up the steps. Once inside the castle, she made her way straight to the infirmary to visit the others and see how Egna and the child were doing. Frederick was sitting in a chair at the foot of the bed that Egna was lying in, looking over the mail as he slept with a worried look on his face. He took a quick glance toward the child that was in the bed on the right of Egna's as the nurse finished wrapping the last bandage. She will need time, but she will recover. She's lucky you found her. A few more days and she would most likely have been dead, the nurse told Frederick as she started toward the door. Ring the bell if they wake up and need anything, she said as she walked out, passing Agatha as she was walking in. She grabbed another chair and placed it down next to Frederick, taking a seat and looking at Egna. So how is he? Frederick lets out a low sigh as he shakes his head. Not looking well for him, but the nurse said they would need time to make an antidote. But his voice trailed as Agatha looked at him with a expression of worry and annoyance. But what is it, Frederick? But what? She asked with a slight panic in her voice, grabbing his arm gently to get. There is a chance, since he wasn't immediately brought back, that the antidote may not work. Agatha's previous look now had been replaced by one of defeat, slouching in her chair as she looked down at the floor. So that's it then. We may lose a friend because we didn't turn around as soon as he had gotten bitten. She questioned to no one as she felt a gentle pressure on her arm, turning to see that Frederick had his hand on her. Don't think like that. There's still a chance he will live. We just have to pray to the Lord and hope everything will work out, he said in a compassionate tone, Agatha moving her gaze up to meet with his. He was leaned in slightly as he spoke to her, being quiet so they did not disturb the two in the beds. I know this is not the best situation, but we'll prevail. We always do, no matter how bad things have gotten, and that won't change anytime soon. I care about all of you too much, even Egna. Frederick said that, seeing it as he and Egna didn't move, their eyes locking as they slowly started to lean in. I care about you most of all, Egna, he told her before they kissed, their eyes slowly closing as they started to melt into the moment and the world around them disappeared. Ivan woke up in his bed, slowly sitting up with a confused look on his face. Oh, well, someone decided to wake up before this afternoon, a familiar voice called out, Ivan turning to see Tobias sitting in a chair across the room. Are you all right? We saw the bite on Egna's arm and are doing the best at that now, he said as he stood up and walked over to Ivan, who had also stood up, both of them leaving the room and heading towards the infirmary to check on Egna. I'm fine, and it's good to know that Egna will be better soon, he replied, just causing Tobias to stop and take a deep breath. Well, it's good to know you're fine, but I have bad news about Egna. Since you did not return with him as soon as he was bitten, there's a possibility that the antidote will not work on him. Ivan felt his chest tighten as his hands clenched into fists. So you're telling me that you can't save him, he stated in an angry tone, Tobias putting his hands out to calm the man and stop him from continuing. I did not say we couldn't save him. I said that there is a chance the antidote doesn't work. We're doing everything we can, but the only way the antidote would work effectively is if we were able to administer it immediately after infection. We've been trying to work on one that can work at any time, but it hasn't been easy. You know how hard it is to catch one of those things? He told Ivan, who started to relax, taking a few breaths as he stared at Tobias. You better hope it works, so you'll answer to me, he said as he continued walking through the infirmary, Tobias sighing as he followed him. I understand he is your friend, as he is to everyone else, but you have to understand that if this does not work, that no one is to blame here. You can't blame me, the alchemists, or everyone. Tobias reminds Ivan, who scoffs, crossing his arms at the statement. Right, don't blame the people who make the antidote if the antidote doesn't work. Tobias sighed as he looked over at Ivan. What do you want from us, Ivan? We're trying the best with what little equipment we have. Most of it can't be repaired because we don't have the materials, and we can't go get them because of the horror out there. And even if we could, we still don't have any idea where to go from here with the antidote. We have tried everything to make it work, and even lost good men trying to come up with an answer, yet we don't have one. So you can be upset if it doesn't work, but don't you dare try to blame any of us, Tobias said in a strict tone as if he was scolding a child. Ivan was silent for a moment, their footsteps echoing through the castle halls as they stopped outside the infirmary door. I'm sorry for my words and threats, Tobias. I know you understand he's a very good friend of mine. I just don't want to feel guilty for not being able to make it back in time with him. Ivan told Tobias in a hushed voice, showing his emotion slightly as a single tear rolled down his cheek. Tobias reaching over and wiping it off as he looked the man in the eyes. Don't worry. I'm sure if I was Frederick, I would say something along the line how you've been through many bad situations, you can overcome this one as well. Ivan gave a small smile, Tobias having grown one on his face as well. Don't worry. I'll be here to talk to, and so will the others. Don't be afraid to come talk to us. He's finished as he took his hand off Ivan's face and opened the door, both of them being caught off guard when they see Frederick and Agatha together. Frederick opened one eye to see the two of them standing there, quickly pulling away, stripes bright red. Oh, hey there, you two. When did you get here? He stammered out his words, Agatha trying to hide her also blushing face. Ivan and Tobias both shared a smirk as they shook their heads and walked into the room. So how is Egna, lover boy? Ivan asked Frederick, teasing him as the flustered man nodded his head. He's okay, but he started, but was quickly interrupted when Tobias spoke. I already told him when we talked about it. He knows. Frederick simply nods as they all watch over Egna quietly for a few minutes, praying that the antidote will work and that he will recover. There's not much left. Oh my god. This is good, but also like...
Yo, Chris, you might want to take a break, like a short bit after that.
I will.
Yeah, honestly.
Because, like, I can tell it in your voice,
Yeah.
that's why.
Yeah.
After a few more moments, Tobias looks at the other three. You three ready? You have to let Lord Lucan know what happened. Tobias asked as they simply nodded, and followed Tobias to the throne room. They didn't talk the whole walk, not having anything to say to each other as they tried to collect their thoughts as best as they could before meeting the Lord. Once they arrived at the door to the throne room, Tobias knocked, the door opening a few seconds. After they all walked in and made their way to the king at the opposite end. They all kneeled in front of him once they made it over and waited for him to speak. Lord Lucan watched this, his eyes starting and examining everyone but Tobias as he began to speak. So, what happened? His voice echoing through the room as he spoke, his tone curious but with a hint of annoyance. No one spoke for a few moments, someone waiting for another to start. Well, Lord, on our way to the village, we decided to stop and rest in an abandoned farmhouse. However, once inside, after a moment of investigating, Egna was attacked and bitten by one of the beasts. Frederick started, looking at the other two, hoping one of them would step in to take over. After that night, once we started for the village again, the infection started to set in, and I had to bring him back with Agatha, and Frederick continued to the village to investigate. I barely made it back with him. Ivan continues to explain, both males now looking at Agatha to continue. Once we had made it to the village, we saw that the beasts had knocked over fire pits around the town, catching it on fire and causing panic as they slaughtered everyone. Just as Agatha finished, loud rumbling could be heard and felt, everyone bracing themselves before a hole broke open in the floor and a loud screech could be heard. That's impossible, Lord Lucan shouts before a horde of beasts fled from inside, everyone rushing to their weapons, ready to fight their last fight when something strange happened. And after the beast finished blooding in, they...
Bum, bum, bum. I didn't get to finish in time.
Alright.
Wait. Break time.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm gonna take a...
It's not because I'm too nervous about it. It's just that I care about your health.
My
Minnie.
health, I'm fine.
Yeah.
It's just I'm really fucking, It took me an
Thirsty.
hour to read. I'm not ready to do that again,
If it makes you feel better, I use a lot of dialogue in my stories, so you might think it's like, I don't know, it might be cheating. So there's lines back to back often.
Oh yeah, we'll get to criticisms and who won, which by the way, there's no reward for this. I wanna make this apparent.
No
I
money?
don't-
What the fuck?
Yeah.
You know what? I drop out then. Forget this.
Yeah.
Well, I won! Yeah. I'm just kidding. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think your story is probably better than mine. I listened to all of it.
I like it.
Yeah. Even though
we
mine
haven't had
has
a
an
fantasy
ending.
setting yet, so
Yeah. I've never.
Mine is kind of schizophrenic too, so I don't.
I don't think I've read anything or heard anything like it.
I like how it almost fit the previous prompt, which was apocalypse. Like it almost fit that
Wasn't
really
even
well.
here for that one. Look at that.
Yeah. It's better than either of the stories that were there for. Actually, no. Duria's for the apocalypse one was pretty good. Riley's was just really bad.
So I do like how I caught myself, like, just completely reversing what I said, like, in the first half of the story, where I said there's no cure for it, and then I say there's an antidote, like, towards the end.
What?
that they have.
Okay. I have a few. I'll get to like the plot holes and stuff later.
Yeah.
And things that I think can be improved for the next time, because I do plan on hosting another one after this, guys.
Please
I
don't
want
make it
my-
20 pages.
Make it
No, I'm
100.
gonna give you guys a month and a half, so
What?
month and a half, probably around the same page count. Not gonna lie.
What?
I'm just gonna give you guys a more specific direction this time.
I'm just-
I'm also gonna. I have 2 ideas that I want to basically discuss.
Alright, well, I'm gonna get some water real quick while we're just sitting here.
Yeah, you should get some.
You should probably get some.
Just got home.
Oh, Minnie, I have a question.
Yep.
How much do you know about Haiti?
Like the nation Haiti.
Yes, the island.
Slave revolt. That's all you got. Anything from the slave revolt? Nothing. I don't know anything.
Okay. Okay.
If the entire
I hope
slave
not.
revolt in Haiti, you'll be fucked. I'm kidding. You'll be fine. As long as you explain things. As long as you explain things well, it'll be fine.
There's some things I think that I thought like the average person would know, so I didn't explain it. But looking back, I probably should have, because I had to do some research on Haiti for college last year, so I had to read a lot of books on it.
Aren't you
So I
going to the
think-
Marine Corps or something. What's up with that?
Well, it's the reserves, the Marine Corps. I'm probably. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, we had a friend that did that too.
Yeah.
Or I might become a drug addict. It's 2 paths.
Those are the only 2 paths for you, huh?
I am studying political science, which means that the 3rd path will be homelessness. So it's pretty drastic.
The Marine
So,
Corps, homelessness and drug addiction. Well, drug addiction and homelessness are pretty close together, so.
Hey, they might be mutually exclusive in his case. We don't know yet.
Yeah, I could be like a high functioning heroin addict.
Yeah, man. Good.
Well, technically, drug addiction includes all kinds of drugs, so you could just be addicted to weed, like Avery.
That's true.
Be somewhat functional.
What about Diet Coke or Diet Dr. Pepper?
Diet Dr. Pepper, is that your drug of choice?
Yeah, I have literally a big gulp right next to me, and I'm drinking that. So that's why I keep on getting up and walking to the bathroom to pee because I keep on drinking this.
Well, Riley,
Yeah.
I can't believe you didn't write your piece.
Yeah, I
You
know.
had me sitting here for another hour reading it.
I know. I would have been, honestly,
I
I
just wrote a dialogue.
don't worry, Chris. I will.
Wait,
And,
Riley, I just realized
I
something.
mean, Chris, if you really want to, you could read the first chapter.
No, I'd rather.
You can read the
'cause,
prologue if you
I'd
want.
rather not. Oh, I might need to reconnect.
We can hear you.
Oh, Riley is the one that died. Okay. So,
I'm very concerned. And my biggest worry is when I was editing it, I was kind of editing it here and there. So I think there's some parts that I forgot to delete in it. I keep on checking it. I can't find it. But I'm almost certain there's like a part.
well, I like
It's
how
just
you
like in
actually
there
have
randomly.
dialogue that's
typing it.
separated by paragraphing. That makes this 20 pages a
Sometimes.
lot easier to read.
Mhm.
Okay, so are you guys ready?
I think Luke Warm or Brendan did not return.
Brandon.
Yeah. Brand.
Yes,
Oh, never mind.
I'm here. Yes, I came
There's
back.
Brandon, Durier, Riley are the people in this channel right now. Riley, you were really adamant that you were gonna have to beat the ass of Riley, weren't you? Durier.
Yeah.
Riley
Oh.
didn't even have a fucking submission piece this time, so
But
Optical's really good at Riley is really good at writing, I think. But
yeah,
if
when
he
actually writes. Well, the thing is, you beat him every writing competition except for the first one he participated in, I think.
Mm-hmm. But I think the first one was like a huge shitpost, which was the problem on my part.
Yeah, let me go check. I mean, it's my own YouTube channel. I can go fucking look at shit, you know?
Or it was like one of those that I just like did and it was 2 pages long or some shit.
I don't know, we're about to find out because I'm gonna pull it up in another.
I think the only one that I'm genuinely proud of was the climate change one and the first
Apocalypto was
one.
really interesting.
That was the one that was. I wish I wrote a lot more, but I kind of did it the day before because I was lazy.
Now,
Yeah, don't do that. That's not gonna work here. Paradox roleplay shenanigans.
hello.
And I'm looking for writing competition.
No, it's just me in the corner.
Okay, so
I'll do better.
it's tea time. Which is, I think.
Oh, that one was the one where the plot
Odyssey Among the
switched.
Stars. That was Riley's. Jim Sama. Yeah, this is bad. I forgot about that. It was only you two again. It seems to be a consistency that it's just you two. Now then we added Sanity of the Future, which you wrote.
Please kill me
we had a lot more-
preemptively. Please.
We had a lot
Having
that I
killed many of
refused
his
to
fellow
read.
men on multiple.
I read mine. I started with my piece because I was like, yeah, I clearly have the best piece. And then I did the fucking wheel for everyone else's. So
Mhm.
Beyond to Arcadia is Riley's. I think you won this one, actually.
Maybe by like default or something like that. Because I think I won 2.
Yeah, I don't know how many I've hosted, though, honestly.
Font hurts my eyes.
What, this one? Or the one before? This one?
Yes, that hurts my eyes. Sorry, it was loading.
That's a special elite. It's meant to look like typeword editor font, so that's why I chose it. So
Don't ever do that again.
I'm not gonna host. I don't usually write my own pieces for these anymore because it just takes up time that I could be reading other people's pieces.
I'm gonna be AFK while you're reading it because I can't. I'm not gonna stand the cringe of hearing my
You
piece.
gotta be here. If you're not here, listen. I'm disqualifying you immediately.
Okay, I'll be here. You have to. But I might like pee or use the bathroom
That's fine.
occasionally. I'll be here most of the time.
All right. Coyote and Seals. The other one I never actually. Did it have a name? Didn't have a title. No catchy title to get me interested. I'm already curious about this one though. Coyote and Seals. What does this have to do with the? What does this have to do? You know. I think I've stared at this blank piece of paper for the past 4 hours now. I don't know why, but every time I try writing a letter to my mother, I end up throwing it away. One part of me thinks the reason why I haven't written anything yet is that I'm too scared to confront my mother, while another part of me thinks that I just haven't thought of anything worthy to write here yet. After receiving her letter in the mail yesterday, I've been racked with emotions that I've never felt before. These strange sensations that have kept me up all last night made it impossible to focus on the task before me. I took several deep breaths to calm my rambunctious heart and forced myself to write. I grabbed my pencil and put it against the blank surface of the paper. Then in an instant, the granite tip violently ruptured, causing a small black stain to appear. I sighed softly to myself and grabbed a pink eraser from the desk drawer and tried to gently get rid of the mark. But try as I might, I couldn't fully get rid of it. No, I have to start again, I said to myself, as I crumbled up the letter and threw it at the overfilled trash can. I watched as the now contorted piece of paper bounced off the mountainous pile of trash that the hordes of cockroaches, flies, and spiders call home. Then the piece of paper rolled across the marble floor, dodging piles of decomposing fruit chips and other miscellaneous items, eventually ending its journey at the base of my feet. I looked down at the piece of paper with a sense of annoyance and curiosity. How can a piece of paper stuffed into an envelope bring me such bad news? For my own mother to threaten to disown me over my job is a fate I wouldn't bestow upon anyone. I have tried countless times to think of ways to get out of this predicament and convince my mother to change course. The demands from my mom forced me into a catch-22. If I followed my mother's orders and quit my job, then I wouldn't be able to support her. But if I kept them, I would lose the person that I got this job for. I do, however, understand why she wants me to leave this job. It's a job that anyone would become me. I thought you were fucking with me earlier, DREA, when you said that you had to finish this in a certain way. Oh no. It's a job that anyone would feel immediate disdain toward. However, it's the only good paying job I can get on this shitty island. One idea I did have was to write a white lie and send that to my mother. Tell her that I got a job as a teacher instead of a coyote. However, I ultimately decided against this course of action because I don't think I keep up that lie for the rest of my life. As I thought about my predicament, I heard a loud knock on the door. As my chair was positioned quite close to it, I yelled, "Who is it?" The answer, "I hate you." The answer from outside was immediate and forceful. "It's me, your friend Charles," I sighed quietly to myself when I heard his familiar gravelly voice. However, in an attempt to come across as kind, I put a fake smile on my face and opened the door. As soon as it opened, Charles lunged towards me and gave me a big hug. I was taken a bit aback by not only his joyful demeanor, but also by the blinding light from outside. "Hello, Charles. How are you doing?" I said to the old man, but instead of exchanging pleasantries with me, he pushed me away, jumping over a pile of clothes that lay next to the door, and sat on the chair I was sitting on a second ago, and put his feet onto my small desk. This confounding action caused some of the bags of chips that were resting peacefully on the table, like baby birds chilling in their nest, to be thrown off the table and crash onto a pile of empty Diet Coke cans. As I looked at the ruin, oh no, this message. Fuck, I lost my place. As I looked at the ruined chip bags, Charles looked at me pitifully and said, "I'm doing quite well, thank you for asking, but it doesn't seem like you're doing quite well." Toussaint? I don't know how you say that. I waved at him dismissively and haphazardly began to pick up small pieces of trash on the floor in a sad attempt to save face. As I did this, I deliberately avoided eye contact in order to not see the disapproval on his grizzled face. "I'm sorry for the mess. I didn't know you were coming," I whimpered to him in a meek voice. Charles, in stark contrast to my depressing demeanor, immediately laughed and said, "When I lived in America, I used to watch a show on TV that I think was called Hoarders, and your house reminded me of that." I, having no clue about the TV show or what the word hoarders meant, asked if that was a compliment. Charles fell out of my chair, landing on the recently thrown chips, and started to laugh hysterically. He then stood up, brushed the chip dust off his leg, walked toward me and said, "It is the greatest compliment that a Haitian can receive." Although it felt like I was being patronized. I bit my tongue and waited for Charles to explain why he was here. You see, Charles only comes when he needs me to sail the large wooden vessel for major migrant carrying operations. However, we typically use the boat once every 6 months or so, and last time we used it was 2 weeks ago. Charles uncharacteristically scowled and said, I'm only here to say to my favorite coyote. Why else would I be here for? This is why I dislike Charles. I can't talk to people who only know how to joke and can never give straightforward hours. Charles. Straightforward answers. Charles, I said in the sternest voice that I can muster, know that I am serious when I say this. Why are you here? If you're only here to say hi, then get out. I do not have time to say hi to a man that I know nothing about. Seeing that Charles finally understood what I was talking about, since he sighed and began to walk out of my home. I felt a tinge of guilt in my heart as this old sad man, go. And then that feeling of guilt went away when he turned back to me and said, I'm only here for the boat, silly. Big Boss Jimmy wants us to run a tiny mission from here to Cuba. I cursed him quietly underneath my breath and asked him what he meant by tiny. In response, he said, he gave me a big smile and said, I mean 3,000 migrants tiny. Instead of responding immediately, I instantly thought of all the ways I could torture him. And after my anger went away, I said, that's more people than the ship can handle. He responded, you never know unless you try. I grumbled and asked if this is really an order from Jimmy. And to that, Charles said yes. What the fuck is a coyote? This has not been explained yet. I'm hoping it gets explained soon. I grumbled and asked if it was really an order. Oh, sorry. Outside was a disgusting wasteland. Beer bottles, heroin noodles, drug addicts, gangbangers, and prostitutes littered the town of Campeche. I think that's how you say that. I would never have lived here if I was forced to. Never have lived here if I was forced to because of my job. Jimmy Barbecue, my boss, got me this house just so I could stay near the large boat that I rarely use. I never go outside my house except to go to the market on Fridays. The reason being that there's a good chance I would die by a crack fiend or a rival gang member. Oh, maybe the coyotes are a gang. I'm thinking that's how it is. The reason we were going to the boat now is that before going on a mission, Charles and I would quickly inspect the boat to see if there was anything wrong with it. After walking in silence for a couple minutes, we both jumped out of the alleyway and onto the rocky beach in front of me. Before I could enjoy the sharp rocks driving against my bare feet, Charles began running towards the boat in a state close to hysteria. Although Charles is an expressive man, it is quite rare to see him scared or panicked. This meant that something had to be deeply wrong with the vessel. Since Charles was wearing Air Jordans, which I believe to be an American shoe brand, he was able to run on this rocky terrain. However, that didn't stop me from trying to chase after him. I don't know if it was me being afraid of being called slow by Charles or if I was just curious what happened on the boat. I started sprinting as fast as I can to reach up to him. However, because of my sedentary lifestyle, I quickly lost breath, forcing me to slow down and ultimately come to a stop. However, this stop caused my left foot to land on top of a broken liquor bottle. The sharp glass wedged itself between my big toe and heel, causing me to fall far behind my Patriot. After I didn't feel much pain from the glass as I expected, but after the shock dissipated, I started to feel a slow burning sensation. Ah, Charles, come back quickly, I am hurt. However, Charles didn't even look back at me, but instead began to run faster towards the boat. My first immediate concern wasn't about the pain, but about the future infection that could stem from this. However, that concern was replaced by the agony that I felt in my foot. I felt like the glass that partly lodged into my foot was fully submerged itself in it. At that moment, I genuinely thought I could feel small glass shards worming around in my skin as if they were lost children in the woods looking for their way home. After I realized that Charles wasn't going to come back for me, I decided to go to him so that he could help me. Somehow, I rationalized that Charles didn't ignore my pleas for help, but that he just didn't hear me in this state of hysteria. I pushed myself up off the sandy beach and began to slowly hobble towards him, and although every step I took towards him was agonizing, I slowly but surely made the journey towards Charles while screaming his name. This was perhaps the most pathetic climate of my life, and brought out a memory of when I was first told my mother that I was moving to Campeche. It was a hot evening in our house when I received a knock from a local drug dealer who worked for Jimmy Barbecue, informing me about my new assignment up north in the small town of Campeche. I've never heard of this term, so... My mother was always against my involvement with the C9 gang, but she also knew it was my only chance for a future in this decrepit nation, so she never chastised me about it. However, for some reason, when she found out I was going to become a human trafficker instead of a low-level drug dealer, she lost her mind. I tried asking her why she was against it, especially said, "Hey, Tucson, get your head out of the clouds and look at this fucking mess." I snapped out of my daydream and slowly limped over to frantic Charles and leaned against the large boat. I then realized the source for Charles' concern. Half the boat was fucking missing. Charles began to scratch his head and sweat nervously. He then said, "Must have been for the fucking boat's been fucking maggots or something like that. If we don't clean this mess up this mess real soon, Jimmy's gonna fucking freak." Charles then turned to me and said, "Tui-san, you can fix this, right?" I looked up to him and said, and sarcastically replied, "Yeah, I can, but as soon as you fix my foot." Tui-san, I think that's how you say that. I quickly glanced at my left foot. Ooh. Charles quickly glanced at my left foot, and as soon as he noticed the large amount of blood in his eyes, he went, "Oh, that explains why you were yelling for my name. I always told you should have bought no shoes, but you never listened." I had to use all my willpower not to yell at him. Although he doesn't act like it, he is quite powerful in the underworld and essentially my manager, so I can't insult him too much. This is quite a problem. How far can you walk, Tui-san? I replied that I probably can't walk back to my house. Charles then jumped off the rotting corpse of a ship that in a week's time will transport thousands of migrants to the sea. He turned to me and entered a squat position. First, I didn't understand what he was doing, but after he pointed to his back several times, I quickly understood his plan. Even though Charles was quite old, I still trusted him with carrying me. I'd seen him carry drowned microbodies before, so I knew that he was somewhat strong. As soon as I got on his back, Charles commented that I was quite fat, which almost caused me to knock him out. However, if I did that, then I probably would have died on the worst beach on planet Earth. We didn't converse much as Charles walked through the main road of the city. It was probably because he felt embarrassed carrying a grown man. However, I did speak when I noticed that he was walking the exact opposite way from my house. "Hey, Charles, don't you know that my house is the other way?" "Yep." "And don't you realize that you are walking away from it?" "Yep." "Where are you taking me?" "To church." "Why are you taking me to church and not the hospital or my home?" He chuckled to himself and said for an exorcism, but after he realized that I was going to hit him, he quickly followed up by saying, "It's because there is no hospital in this shitty town, so our best hope for disinfectant medical supplies is the church. And you can please not hit your Uncle Charles across the head." Since I was satisfied with that answer, I put my hand away and threatened him that if he made another joke, I would kill him. Charles then this is a schizo nightmare. Oh my god. This is a schizo book. I love it though. Since I was satisfied, the church looked more like a monument or a mosque than a building that Christians worship in. The church had two small walls painted in white, which surrounded a large wall that was all gold. It not only looked gaudy, but also looked very old. I think I remember from somewhere that this church was built in the 1600s. Charles gently placed me to the side of the door and knocked on it quite loudly. It was Saturday evening, so I assumed that Charles thought he might find the pastor there. The brown door was inscribed with Bible quotes gently opened for us two human traffickers. "Hello," said the pastor. "What brings you here today?" The pastor's voice sounds somewhat high-pitched, so even though I couldn't see him, I knew that he was fairly young. Charles responded to the pastor's question with a voice that was completely opposite of the pastor. "My son here was feeding the homeless when he was attacked by a godless gangbanger. His foot is now cut up and he may need some help. I'm sorry if you need money, but because I can't pay you. I have spent all my money buying medicine to combat my malaria diagnosis. I'm also on dialysis." The pastor gasped at Charles' bullshit story and asked for him to bring me inside. He then proceeded to pour this liquid all over my throat, which burned immensely, while singing a gospel song in English. The church's insides were almost as gaudy as the outside. There were portraits of Black Jesus and famous Haitian revolutionaries all over the walls. After the pastor was done burning my leg, he then put a cloth around and said, "I will heal in 10 days' time." Although the entire experience only lasted for a couple minutes, it was Shut up. Be gone, Duryea. Fuck, we're only 6 pages through. That brought memories of me participating in voodoo ceremonies as a child. The pastor then bid us farewell and asked for us to come to Mass tomorrow. Charles and I both agreed to this proposition as a way to give thanks to the pastor. My foot ached as I struggled to stand up for Mass. The constant palpitations which aroused from my foot can only be compared to a sharp migraine one experiences after suffering extreme stress. Every single step to the Cathedral Notre Dame du Compassion. Right. Cathedral Notre Dame du Compassion. Sorry, I've been putting on my French accent this entire time. Sorry, gamers. There were many people packed into the great cathedral, which came as a great surprise, because even though it was Sunday and most Haitians were Catholics, the town of Cap-Haïtien was almost always desolate. The only people who went out during the day were drug addicts, senile gangsters, and young men going to the market. As I stated before, I've never been to church, but that's not because I was an atheist, but because I was a Buddhist or follower of the Voodoo faith. My parents used to take me to the how to pronounce that is not Ugandan, bruh. Whatever. I guess I'll just go with Ugandan. For the month's ceremony. Mostly ceremony. They would sacrifice an animal, typically a pig, to give thanks to a number of West African. Oh. So it is an African word. Okay. Well, I can't fucking say it. The ceremonies were almost always overly elaborate, and they typically involved a large quantity of food and grown adults screaming like toddlers who pooped their pants. The pastor began his sermon by giving thanks to God and the community. He then said, 229 years and 7 days ago, our forefathers rose, and that's a very specific day, in revolt against the French Empire to achieve a life free from persecution and slavery. The challenges they faced were much greater than what we face today, and instead of fighting amongst themselves, they instead united and created the great nation we call home. Today, this country is a shadow of its former self. Gangsters control more territory than the government, and men are committing terrible crimes daily. Instead of uniting and fighting the many problems facing this nation, people decide to instead bicker amongst themselves and fight over drugs, prostitutes, and other materialistic bullshit. That should be bullshit. If people even make a living taking people and dropping them off in Cuba, this has to stop in order for this country to prosper, and if it doesn't, we will all go to hell. After his little speech, the pastor went on to talk about Jesus and pass a hat around so people could put money inside of it. Although I'm only here to be kind to someone who helped me, that speech did somewhat leave an impact on me. I never thought I was doing anything wrong when I dropped those people off in foreign lands. I thought that if anything, I was doing something good since I was helping people escape this hellhole. However, here's this nice guy saying I will burn in hell for doing that. As I mulled it over, I noticed a large cop approaching me. I thought he was trying to get the people right next to me, so I decided to stand up and let him pass. However, I realized that he came here for me. When I didn't hug him back, the police officer's face turned sour, and then he asked me if I didn't remember him. Sorry, I don't think I know who you are, officer. Is there anything you need? I attempted to sound apologetic as to not anger him. Even though this officer doesn't seem that scary, I've heard stories of the Haitian National Police acting extremely violent towards suspects. Also, even though that it is true, cops don't typically go after members of the C9 gang, I should always be aware that they can arrest me at any time. In response to my question, the officer shook his head, took off his blue hat, and revealed to me his bald head. Remember me now, Tui-san? At first, I didn't understand why he was showing me his head, but then I noticed a small gray tattoo in the middle of his scalp. That's when I first discerned the meaning of this gesture. Oh, I said, as if I was having a eureka moment. I remember you. You were the Yugen son. Yugens, I'm guessing. What are you doing all the way out here for? I was quite surprised that he was here for several reasons. First off, we never chatted during the voodoo ceremonies that his father was in charge of, so I don't know how he knows me, especially my name. Second, even if he did know me, how did he recognize me after all these years? The only reason why I recognized him is because he had the tattoo his father gave him doing the... You just hate me, don't you? Dear, fuck you. I hate you. Bondu ceremony. However, the reason why I was most confused by his presence was uniform. Each district of Haiti has their own police uniforms, and all of the uniforms are quite similar to one another. The main difference between all the uniforms is the name of the district that they serve. The name that was prominently featured on his uniform was Bel Air. Bel Air is a suburb outside of Port-au-Prince, the capital. That means that the officer drove at least 3 hours to go to this hick town in the middle of nowhere. Now, it is possible he's just visiting family here or wanted to see this beautiful church, but I'm quite doubtful. For some reason, I have a feeling he came here just to talk to me. Do you remember my name? He said in a deep, boisterous voice. I merely shook my head, because even though I never talked to the guy, I still felt like it was a tad disrespectful to forget the name of the son of the Yugen back in my hometown. Oh, he said disappointedly. Well, it's been like, 10 years? Anyway, my name is Jack Devoir, but you can just call me Officer Devoir. Okay, is there anything you want from me, Officer Duvoir? It would be obvious to anyone that I was extremely nervous. I could not fathom a reason why an officer from Bel Air would come here to talk to me. If the cops wanted to arrest me, why wouldn't they just use an officer from Cap-Haitien? In response to my answer, Jack Duvoir chuckled, although because of his low voice it sounded more like a rumble. He then said, I'm just here to say hi. I'm in town visiting some family, and I couldn't resist not saying hi when I saw you here. I knew what he said was just a complete lie. Why would an officer show up in his own uniform to church? And I know for a fact that his family lives in Bel Air. The only reason for him to lie so obviously is that he was hiding something. I could push him on this a little and attempt to make him spill the beans. However, if I'm too aggressive, I can make him shut down and not tell me anything. There was also a chance that he was telling the truth, that he had extended family that I didn't know about living here, and he was wearing his uniform to ward off any gangsters from attacking him. This could just be one large coincidence, but I don't have enough information to be certain. Toussaint, what are you doing now around here nowadays? Officer Duvoir said as he proceeded to sit down next to me. He's so close that I can now hear every single hot breath that he takes. Now that he is in front of me, I can tell that he is sweating quite a lot. His entire face looked glazed like a donut that you would find in the market. There was a simple reason as to why he was sweating so much, and that's probably because the Haitian heat was getting to him. However, if that was the case, then why wasn't I sweating as much as him? It could be because his uniform was trapping in heat, or it could be because he was. This is just fucking Death Note, bro. He's fucking Death Noting this shit. Also, I hate you, Diria. You made me read the word fucking for the voodoo fucking priest, bro. I don't know what that is. I don't know how to pronounce that. Pronounce it right now, Diria. Pronounce it right now. Damn it, he's not here.
Yo, he really is death noting this one section though. It's fun.
He is Death Noting this.
It's fun.
Yeah. Also, how the fuck do you say that word?
Which word?
The one for like the voodoo priest.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, what does the word look like?
I'll try and like that.
Ugden?
Yeah, I know that. I was like, I just ended up saying Yugen because I was like, I could say Yugen. My mind was was going racing 100 miles per hour. It probably didn't help that as I wildly thought of every possibility explaining his presence, there was my foot which pulsated continually like molten lava. I didn't know which feeling was worse, the fact that I couldn't do anything to stop the pain or the pain itself. However, I can thankfully take solace in the fact that it should heal soon. Either the officer noticed my discomfort or he thought I was looking at him quite mad, but he asked if I was okay. I said that I was, and then I proceeded to answer his question. I'm just a merchant of pen and goods around here. Seems that you're now a police officer. That's amazing. How's your father doing nowadays? I quickly realized that my delayed answer to his question was not only awkward, but clearly showed that I was hiding something. It's obvious to anyone I am no merchant. And a merchant wouldn't wear gold chains or have merchant or have tattoos on his arms. I just hope Officer Duvoir was stupid enough to believe me. My father is doing good. Thank you for asking. How is your father doing? I don't know how to pronounce that. I know what it is. I just don't know how to pronounce it, Diria. Speak right now. Yeah, speak right now.
Ogden?
Ogden? Are you sure?
Yeah.
Is this your final answer?
Yeah.
Okay. Ogden. My father is he's doing well. That was a blatant lie on my part. My father has been dead for 15 years, and my mother insisted it was cholera, but I think it was probably gang-related. Officer Duvoir then cleared his throat and said, I've been told by a friend of yours, I think his name is Charles, that you can help me with something. My mind began to crumple in that instant. In a pathetic attempt, I began to lie uncontrollably. I don't know who this Charles person is. Really? Because he told me that you two were quite close. He's probably just a crack fiend who imagined I was his friend. He leaned in closer to me. At this time, both of our faces were touching, almost touching face to face. So he said something more terrifying than a great white. I know that you are lying, Toussaint Dominique. I instinctively began stammered back from the officer's face. And officer, I didn't do anything. I don't know this man. I'm a good man. I would never do anything against the law. The officer then laughed and explained that he wasn't here to hurt me. Then why are you here? What do you want from me? Officer Duvoir then motioned for me to stand up, and I began to walk with him outside. We passed several groups of churchgoers loitering until we stopped at a church behind the tree grounds. Charles, your uncle told me that you are the head of this operation. Is it true to his aunt? He is not my uncle, and I am not head of anything, I said, while avoiding eye contact with him. I hope so. I can barely pronounce Tuizone, if that's even right. Is there still room for one more in your boat? Now I heard everything. I don't think I've ever met an officer in my life who wanted to become a migrant. Charles handled all that stuff. All I do is just sail the damn thing. The cop remained silent for a couple seconds and asked how much it typically costs. So that I chuckled and said $15,000 US. At first I thought he was joking, but after I realized he was dead serious, he yelled that, "You're ripping people off. That's a fucking year of my wage. Wow, they're poor." To that, I replied that he better start saving. I then asked how he knew I was in the church. He said, "Oh, Charles told me where you were and what you look like. Anyways, I got to go. Look suspicious if we talk to each other any longer." The cops started to walk away. I heard a small camera flicker somewhere in the distance. The wind made it impossible to discern the sound of the noise. It was possible for us to scatter like a bunch of cockroaches. But because of my injury, I can only hobble away instead of running away. I pulled out my BlackBerry in a state of panic and called Charles. Instead of asking him why he lied to the cops about me, I asked for help. "Hey Charles, what's up, little man? I'm in big trouble. Someone just took a photo of me talking to a cop." Also, why are we talking to a cop? Also, let's not talk to this. Wait, what? So many alarm bells rang up in my head at once it just made me dizzy. Charles is joking or blatantly lying. Anyways, Charles said, there should be a hardware store near the market. Can you pick up some supplies? I already have the tools necessary to fix the boat. Bye-bye. Wait, don't hang up. But it was too late. The line went dead. I tried calling him several times after that, but the calls went straight to voicemail. I decided that instead of walking home and confronting him, I should just get the supplies and ask him about it later. It kind of surprised me when Charles told me that there was a hardware store in this hick town. However, when I got there, I found quite quickly that Charles was perhaps overselling this place by calling it a hardware store. It was more like a firewood stash shoved inside of a corner store. Logs of varying sizes littered the floor, and in the middle of it was a small, dark, old man, slowly carving one of the smaller log pieces into something. "Hey, can I come in?" I asked. To which the old man answered, "Make yourself at home here." I was still kind of confused as to what Charles exactly wanted in this store. All he mentioned to me was to get some wood, and that apparently he has some tools to fix it up. I am confused by that for two reasons. First, I don't know where he got the tools from, and secondly, I don't know how he plans on fixing a whole ship by himself and an injured person. I don't know if he thinks that I will bring a whole log all the way to the ship by myself. I turned to the old man and said, "Can I buy the smallest log you have?" The old man didn't immediately respond to me, but after he was done making a few carving marks, he gave an answer. "Sure, but why do you need a small log? Aren't you trying to fix the whole boat?" "How did you know that I was going to fix the boat? Did Charles tell you I was coming?" "Yeah, he did. He came in earlier in the day and said that a tall, skinny fellow and a fat man will be here to buy some logs to fix it." "Boom." I was quite confused by the answer, and so I asked, Do you know why he didn't just buy the logs from you in the morning when he was here?" The old man shook his head and said, "I assumed he got you to buy it because he's too old to be carrying logs. If you're going to fix up a boat, you're going to need more than one small log. You can use my wheelbarrow to carry them." The little man pointed to the small rusting wheelbarrow in the corner of his shop. I would be surprised if he can carry. I'd be surprised if he could carry one small. God, I'm only on page 11.
Ooh.
I'm gonna drink some water.
Yo, this is starting to sound like a setup.
Let alone several of them at once. There were so many questions that I wanted to ask the old man who was Charles referring to when he said I was supposed to come with a fat man. Where did Charles get the tools when he said there were none here? However, it seemed like this old man wouldn't know any of these the answers to these questions. I then proceeded to limp throughout the store in an attempt to find a log that I can carry in my condition. When I found a log that successfully met my preconditions, I decided to buy it. However, there was once. What do you mean that it's 10,000 gourde? That's way too much for a single damn log. I expected it to be 500 gourde or 1,000 at most, but 10,000 gourde was way too high. Although it was true I could still afford the log, I have to spend half my savings on it. Sorry, young lad, but the cost of getting these fellas have been sky high ever since President Moyes died. Inflation has been rising throughout Haiti ever since the president's assassination, but I never expected it to get this bad. I heaved a sigh of disappointment and forked over the money. Honestly, doing that was more painful than getting my foot cut. Several months of work shipping migrants across the Gulf of Mexico was wasted on a fucking log. I hoisted the fellow up so I can put the most of my weight on my. I gotta find out how much 10,000 coins it is. I guess I'm not gonna find out. All right, never mind.
Give me a sec. I think it's actually not that much money.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if I said like 1 million or something, I think that wouldn't have sounded cool. That wouldn't have sounded realistic.
I'm just curious how much 10,000 goiza is, or gorda, or whatever the fuck. Gorda. Yeah, it's not a lot. And 10,000. It's only $77. It's still a lot though.
Yeah.
Let's find out. 500 is $3. 1,000 is $7. Damn, that's impressive. Alright. I limped out of the hard stair carrying an extremely heavy log and started my trip home. I stopped dead in my track when I saw him, Jimmy Barbecue, politician, C9 leader, serial arsonist, and my boss. I've only spoken to him once before at the port down in the capital. There, while waiting for him to talk to me, I overheard him talking to his goons about the upcoming local elections and a plan to burn the local magistrate's house down. Jesus. I turned around and began. This is corrupt politicians. I hoped that he came to the small town for Charles, or even to buy wood from the old man, anything but me. Hey, Dewey-san, come over here. Don't you recognize Uncle Jimmy? I subconsciously lowered my head and turned to face a large group. Jimmy Barbecue was in front of his entourage. It's very easy to tell who he is, since he is the only over-8 Haitian to exist. Next to him were several men 20 years his junior. They all carried large machetes or small arms weapons. Although Haiti is a hellhole, it's quite difficult to smuggle larger weapons from the States because of the U.S. Coast Guard. Jimmy wore his signature red button-up shirt and complicatly large black pants. Jimmy insists that his last name is Barbecue because his parents owned a barbecue, and in order to honor them and to differentiate from the other Jimmys, he decided to don the last name Barbecue. That's an oddly specific detail about this man. However, the truth is that Jimmy and his C9 name have a tendency to accidentally burn down entire neighborhoods. Jimmy walked toward me with a speed uncharacteristic of him. Although Jimmy is extremely neurotic and hyper, he isn't the most athletic man. When he approached me, I took a step back unconsciously and asked him a question. What brings you to Cape Haitian, Jamie? Now it's Cape. Cape Haitian, Jimmy. Although I already knew the answer that he came here for me, I had a slight sliver of hope he was looking for you, Charles. For you to his aunt? He sprayed all over my face, causing me to shut my eyes. I have been looking for you all over this shitty city. Thankfully, Charles finally told me where you were at. That didn't make sense. The only way this could be true if Charles texted my location while I was at the store. Why would he do that? Where's everyone anyway? I mean, this place is a fucking... where is everyone anyway? I mean, this place is a ghost town. He kept on tugging my shoulders, my stomach, my face, arms, stomach, hair, and legs, while talking so fast I couldn't respond. He didn't stop talking. His spit kept on smashing into my face, causing me to blink faster and faster as he stared in my eyes and ranted about whatever his little heart desired. You know, I helped finance the city, get the mayor elected, get rid of all the evil gangsters, and everyone's still left. Except for you, of course. I mean, how are you doing? Why do you keep blinking? Do you have something in your eyes? Charles told me that he was doing great, but didn't mention that you were having some problems fixing the boat. I couldn't keep up with all the questions and added the blue statements. I didn't understand what he wanted from me or why he was still here. All I knew is that Charles had something to do with this. His spit mixed with my sweat created a sticky liquid that slowly crawled down my face. That's disgusting, but that's actually a really good description. Every second of this encounter felt like a lifetime, and every time my heart expanded and contracted, so did the pain in my foot. Why do you look so scared? Anyway, I came to help you two out. Charles told me last night that someone destroyed your boat, so I decided to let you borrow mine for the evening. What? Is there gum in your ears or something? I said that you could borrow my boat this evening. Migrants are already coming over from all over Haiti, so make sure you hurry on out of here. I'll be waiting for you to come back to give you your next mission directly. I stared at him in silence for a little while, dropped the log, and began to walk home. There was just leaving the log, bro. Spent half his savings on that shit, bro. There were so many questions circling in my head that I didn't even know what to say, so I did nothing at all and limped my way back to the boat. When I got home, the sun began to set. I noticed a long line of migrants covered in rags and Charles helping them into the boat. This boat looked like a stereotypical millionaire knot, so I assumed it was actually Barbecue's boat. I patiently waited until the last man entered the boat. I looked up to Charles, and he looked down at me, waving, then I got into the boat. I didn't ask him any questions about the lies that he told me today, because I think he would just deny it on the spot. Even though I didn't say anything to Charles asked me if he can watch me drive the boat. Charles typically never gets on the boat during expeditions, but I didn't ask him why today was different. I just allowed him to get on and begin our journey. The sun arose gently from the east, uncovering its whole body slowly in an attempt to bring out the day. None of the migrants slept at all last night, which was understandable. I stayed up all night sailing this thing while Charles kept watch over me and the migrants. Although it was only the morning, somehow it was extremely hot outside. Charles and I debated if we should cool down the oldest of the migrants by using our personal supply of water, but we ultimately decided against it. By that I mean, Charles yelled at me for even bringing up the idea. He probably thought that since they had already given up the money beforehand, he doesn't have to care about what happens to them on the trip. He has no incentive to help them in the event of a disaster or prevent them from succumbing to heat stroke. Now, I'm not claiming to be a paragon of virtue. However, I sometimes feel that I'm the only one in the C9 gang who's not suffering from bouts of psychosis or isn't a complete psychopath. Although one could argue that I am no better than Charles, since all my actions have been very similar to him, and to that I would have to agree. Charles walked up to me, leaned over to me, and whispered, "The water's surprisingly calm, isn't there? And if there isn't a cloud in the sky, if everything goes to plans, we should reach Cabo in 2 hours. If you squint your eyes, Tuizan, you can see the outline of our destination. We will drop them there and go back to Haiti to rendezvous with Jimmy Barbecue. The look on their faces when they discover that they are not in the U.S. would be gold." Even though I've done this trip at least a dozen times before and left countless Haitians on the shores of Cuba, this trip felt different. Before, I would never have thought about the future of my cargo, but for some reason I am. I try to imagine the faces when they realize they have been abandoned in the middle of a hick town in Cuba. They'd probably be scared since they wouldn't be able to converse with the locals. Perhaps they will be ostracized because of their raggedy clothes and Haitian accent. The Cubans would either deport the Haitians back or let them live on the eastern side of the country, far away from Havana or any of the prosperous regions of Cuba, forcing a cafe bar, forcing them to live a life of poverty in a land completely alien to them. They would probably curse Charles and me for scamming them with their life savings and abandoning them to die. If what the young pastor said was true, then I would certainly be going to hell for my crimes. I guess the only thing that keeps me worried about this is my own future, and not necessarily the lives of these migrants. After this trip, I decided today that I will hand in my resignation to Jimmy and go back to Port-au-Prince. I'd probably try to apply for asylum in the U.S., get denied, and work as a merchant for the rest of my life. No woman would want to marry me because of my previous line of work, but that's okay. I come to understand now that what my mother meant when she told me that I'd be disgracing myself by becoming a coyote. Earlier I said that I didn't understand what I was doing was wrong, but I understand it now. Placing people in a country they don't know, forcing them to choose either deportation or ostracization, is the worst thing one could do to another person. Worse than murder, extortion, robbery, or any other crime you can name. I am no different from the wolf in that story my mom told me when I was younger. I deceived these people into thinking they would be able to start over by landing in the U.S., but in reality I made it so that they would never be able to start over. We're coming closer to the country now. I can see the outline becoming clearer and clearer. I can also hear the dirty, sweating, stinking pile of humans cheering behind me, thinking that they are almost at the U.S. They all probably think that we somehow successfully evaded the U.S. Coast Guard with this gaudy boat, and that all of their hopes, all their dreams will finally come true. We were getting closer now. I could sense Charles snickering softly behind me. However, his soft, coarse, condescending chuckles were interrupted when I asked him, "How is America?" He was speechless for a second and asked why I said that, to which I replied, "You told me yesterday that you went to America before. Was that a lie, or were you actually telling the truth?" "Have you ever been to America before, Charles?" I turned to him when he didn't give me an immediate answer, and I asked him the same questions. He then finally gave me an answer. "Yes, I lived in America for a couple of years in the 1990s, but when I was deported after robbing a store. It was my turn to be speechless for a while. "So you illegally came to America?" He then quickly gave a head nod. That's when I reflexively asked him, "Is America anything like what these people dream that it is. What do you mean by that, Tuizan? These migrants keep on talking how they will become rich in America, how they will be able to dream, and how they can get a second life there. They even gave us all their money to make this happen. Charles smiled at the last part, but I don't know if these people are even telling the truth. Charles didn't say anything at first, but after he realized I was done talking, he quickly responded, "They are lying. America is nothing like that." I instinctively interrupted and said, "How could they all be misled about that? Charles, are you lying to me again?" His face scowled, and he pinched his right clear eyebrows in a heavy sigh. Tuizan, you must not interrupt your elders. It's quite rude. Anyways, I was saying that although America isn't heaven on earth, it's still a million times better than Haiti. You could find a job quite easily, but if you're an illegal, it's a bit harder, but still possible. For example, your Uncle Charles used to work as a farmer with a bunch of Mexicans in Arizona when I was your age. Why are you asking these questions? You've never asked me anything about my past before, so why are you doing it now? Instead of answering his question, I decided to respond by asking a question of my own. Do you think this boat can make it all the way to Florida? Charles was quite bewildered by the question. I'm not sure. I'm not surprised because there was no practical reason as to why I needed to know, but for some reason he still decided to answer. Yeah, this boat can probably make it all the way there, but why are you asking me that? You planning to escape or what? I made a split-second decision that will alter the course of my life forever. I grabbed the old man by the collar and began the protagonist is fucking schizo, and began to forcefully move him to the edge of the boat. At first, it seems that Charles had no idea what I was doing, but after a couple of seconds, "What are you doing? Put me down. Tuizan, you and your family will be killed because of this." I didn't say anything in response. I just continued moving in a straight line to kill the man who stood in the way of my future. Although Charles was quite old, he was quite strong. So the only reason I was winning this fight was because that I surprised him. So after a little while, Charles called out, began struggling to make himself free. Although I didn't see it, I imagined the migrants were looking at us with a sense of bewilderment. Charles tried to kick my injured leg several times, but every time he tried, I just lifted his frail body higher and higher. It must have looked like a humorous scene, since it looked like I was lifting up a crying, wailing baby. When Charles tried biting my arms, that's when I decided to throw him overboard. Charles's body slammed into the ocean, but instead of thrashing in the water, all I witnessed was his body slowly sink into the ocean's abyss. I took a couple of deep breaths and stood there frozen for a couple seconds. I can't believe that I just did that I ended someone's life so casualty. I turned around and approached the ship's main control panel. That's when I fully committed to the idea of going to America. I had no plan on where in America to land or how we planned on avoiding the Coast Guard, but I still went. Surprisingly, none of the migrants screamed in horror or attempted to apprehend me when they watched me snuff the life out of their fellow countrymen. How they started to get uppity when I was turning the ship around. "Hey!" screamed one of the younger migrants. He must have been around 15 years old, which means that his family probably paid the money to send him to the States. He was a scrawny boy. "Are you sending us back to Haiti?" I quickly yelled that I'm not sending them back. The boy said, where I was thinking, I said, "To America, of course." Then began to answer a bunch of questions which showcased the confusion and fear. But instead of answering any of them, I chose instead to remain silent. After 10 minutes of them yelling at me, they realized that there was nothing they could do to get me to talk. If they threw me off the boat, they wouldn't be able to sail it anymore, which means that their fates were tied to mine. The only thing I said during the whole trip was for one of the migrants to grab Charles' water jug in order to cool the elderly off. There sadly was only enough water to cool 5 people out of the thousands that were cramped inside this boat. I would like to believe that I did this because I genuinely thought it was the right thing to do, but I most likely did it because if we were stopped by the Coast Guard, I didn't want to be liable for any corpses that lay on the boat. Thankfully, most of the trip was uneventful, but it was the one thing that kept bothering me, because besides my left foot. I still don't know where I was going to land these migrants. The easiest place would be Miami or the Florida Keys, but we get immediately sighted by a sunbathing Floridian and deported back to Haiti faster than my mother would beat me. Perhaps the best place to go would be the Keys on the east side of Florida, since it is the least populated part of Florida. I noticed 2 things immediately on the small map of the United States. The first thing that supplied me was the southeastern side of Florida lies on this, and that for us to cross that, it would probably take a Herculean effort. Secondly, I noticed there was only one city in southeastern Florida, and that was Everglades City. However, I had never made it to Everglades City. The boat was stopped by the U.S. Coast Guard, and I was forced to go back home with the rest of the migrants. I was surprised the Coast Guard didn't try to arrest me for human trafficking, instead just escorted us back to Haiti. This is the equivalent of a death sentence. Jimmy Barbecue will not only burn me alive, but perhaps my entire family too. However, I didn't lament. I instead embraced this as God's or Bondi's will. I dropped the migrants off at the beach near my house, and then I got off the boat and ran home. Jimmy Barbecue and his men were awake, so it didn't take long for them to take me in. Seemed they planned on killing me, even if I didn't kill Charles. So when I told them the news of his death, they didn't seem that concerned, but they were slightly annoyed. One of Jimmy's men pushed me to the ground, wrapped a cloth around my eyes, and duct taped my mouth. Then several men tied me to a pole in the middle of the living room, while screaming that I was a traitor. Jimmy then quieted down and began his overly verbose speech. We gather here to say farewell to a monster who not only killed his mentor, but destroyed my own ship. Even though you served me well for a couple of years now, you decided to throw away our bond just to steal my ship. Not only did you do that, but you destroyed the ship that I loaned you all those months ago. Now what do you have to say for yourself before I give out my own verdict? I heard his footsteps getting closer. They were heavy, which insinuated that he was either stomping, or he was so heavy that he just makes loud stomping sounds regardless of his intent. He then came up to my face and ripped off the duct tape. The pain was immediate, as it was bleeding. I gritted my teeth as the pain seared all over my mouth. I then took in a couple of slow steps to slow down my breathing and said, my piece. Calling me a traitor is probably accurate, however I have and never would steal from you. Jimmy then quickly responds, then why did you take my boat and kill Charles? Were you attempting to sell the boat to the Chen Men-Chen gang? No, I killed him so I could escape to the U.S. I planned on dumping your boat off on the coast of Florida. Jimmy kept quite satisfied with that answer. He then asked me another question. Okay, let's just say for the sake of that argument you're telling the truth. That still wouldn't explain why you would tear down the boat and sell off its pieces to the old man if all you planned on doing was escaping. Charles, before he died, also told me that he saw you talking with a cop in the church before you attempted to escape. I don't know what you're talking about. Charles told the cop to come to me, and I didn't touch the boat. Jimmy snarled and then angrily accused me of lying. Why do you still insist on lying? We have Charles, one of the most loyal members of the family, saying that he knows it was you who destroyed the boat. I even saw you carrying a log around that old man's store just so you could sell it. Charles even sent me a photo of you talking to that cop. That's probably why you killed him. I was too shocked to immediately respond. I cursed Charles in my head and then said, if you knew that was true, why didn't you kill me when you saw me at the old man's store? Jimmy said, that's because we still need you to save the damn boat back to Cuba. That's when everything I said, I realized. That's all the strange events that I noticed during the day leading up to the expedition's click. The best hypothesis that I can think of is this. Charles and I were both salaried men who worked for Jimmy. Charles must have realized that if he convinced Jimmy that he was an invaluable worker, he would get a larger share of the profits. With inflation going up and mass uncertainty across the nation, Charles probably must have needed money quickly, so he came up with a plan to kill me and take over a larger share of the profits. His plan was to make it seem like I destroyed the ship. This explains why Charles pretended to think that the boat was destroyed yesterday morning. It explains why he had tools randomly. It also explains why he talked to the shopkeeper. He most likely sold the logs to the old man in order to get a little pocket change. He didn't expect the cop to ask him questions about our human, but he used the cop brilliantly by making it seem I was snitching to the cop. He then sent all this information to Jimmy, which explains why he was waiting at my house. Charles' plan would have probably worked if I didn't randomly kill him like a madman. I laughed when I finally figured out Charles' plan. His plan was so simple that even a baby would have probably figured it out. The only thing I take solace in before my execution is the fact that Charles died before seeing his friend at fruition. Are you done talking to his son? I nodded yes. Then it is now time for your punishment. I then heard somebody, probably a low-level goon, squat down and put duct tape over my mouth again. After that, someone picked up a large container and splashed slime and liquid all over my face. I assumed it was gasoline, because not only did it reek of a gas station, but also the fact that it smelled strangely sweet. The gasoline was enough to let me know what my fate was. If I was lucky, Jimmy wouldn't go after my family, but I have no way of knowing if he would or not. I just hope that in my next life, I would listen to my mom a tad bit more, but knowing my dumb ass, I probably would have been swindled by a merchant or policeman anyway. I don't get to see him burn alive. That was good. That was good.
Yo, that was actually really good, dude.
Yeah. It's a story I never expected nor asked for.
Thanks. I wish, because towards the end, it was like 9 o'clock, and I was rewriting the ending, and I think I should have done that, because I thought I would have more time to rewrite it, so I deleted a lot of it, which was a mistake on my part. Yeah.
I don't really know what you meant when you said you felt like you rushed it, but it's still, I would say it was pretty good.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it a lot.
I liked it. I thought
The
it was
subject,
nice.
the
Pretty
subject
nice
matter
story.
too. The subject matter was
It was
quite.
very unique.
Definitely does seem. It
Yeah, it
does
was
seem
quite
like a.
interesting.
Like-
It reminded me of a book I read in high school a lot, where they were transporting fucking drugs, but in this time it was people. Anyway,
What book did you read in high school?
I can't forget what it's called, but Hole in My Life, I think. It's about a guy who goes to prison because he sold drugs.
Happens to the best of us.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, gentlemen, both of them were actually very enjoyable pieces. Both had very unique takes. Very, I didn't expect either of them. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Sounds about right, honestly.
I had no idea what to expect out of either of them. I didn't give you guys a category. I kind of wanted to be surprised. I wanted to get a variety of pieces, and I'm glad that I did. I got one piece that's set in a fantasy world with like a zombie apocalypse, or probably just medieval world. I don't know.
I really hope it's like they actually turn into beasts and shit, you know? Like the virus thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I have one about a fucking. I didn't even know this was a thing before. A coyote, a fucking dude transporting people to Cuba, bro. I was like, damn, this freaking fucking. There was very
So-
interesting subjects.
So a medieval story or a story about a schizo poster, pretty much, right?
Most sane Haitian.
Surprisingly, he probably was the most sane one in the story.
Mhm.
He was trying to.
The only. Oh, sorry.
I just want to say I called the setup.
I figured it was a setup as well.
Yeah.
I went back to make it a little bit
It
more
was it
obvious.
was honestly pretty interesting. I like the mystery element as well. Like, what the fuck's going on? You know, who destroyed the boat?
The boat.
All right, so let's go over criticisms for both pieces first and foremost. Let's start with Brandon's piece. So, Brandon, my first complaint that I have to vet against you, the first major criticism, is that you never would start a new paragraph whenever you started a new character's dialogue. This is a general rule of thumb for writing, and Dirie is a very bad victim of this too, but at each instance of dialogue, you should be starting a new paragraph, like a new person speaking, right? Somebody can go on a tirade that lasts a page long. That's fine. But
Oh, I got bullied for this as well.
I've made this point in every single writing comp, I think.
I thought I remember my English teacher saying that if it was like back and forth, you can do that. But if there's like, I think she said it was like if there's text in between or something like that, or like, then you don't have to or something like that.
So
I don't remember.
you shouldn't ever. My general rule of thumb is I don't like to have two characters dialogue in the same paragraph, right? Because that makes it. You can have text in between. It just makes it difficult to read because you'll have dialogue in the middle of this fucking like wordy ass thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like you did that several times, Dirie, as well, where I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to read this, and
Yeah. I could hear you struggling to read both of them.
because
That's
you guys
probably
had
the main-
grammatical errors in several places, which
That is,
I've made plenty myself. But I'd read it, and of course, you know, reading aloud, you notice all the grammatical errors that you made, especially if somebody else is reading it.
Even reading silently, you can just like see them, and you're just like, damn.
Yeah. So
It's like simple words too that you always end up messing up.
yeah.
It's like, come on.
Yeah. No. So I genuinely though, like. Besides like grammatical errors, both of these stories were interesting conceptually. Both ended a bit rapidly. I felt like there definitely could have been more for Dirie's story. Brandon, you just didn't finish, so I understand that. You're hitting the deadline. I say pencils down. You're like, fuck, I still had like 20 other words I could have put down, right?
I still had like, I think a whole nother paragraph I could have gotten away with, possibly.
You probably could have gotten away with way more, but
yeah.
It was about 6 minutes late by the time I realized that I needed to ask you guys for your submissions.
Yeah,
and I think I went off like 5
I saw
minutes.
it hit time. I saw it hit time, and I was like, you know what? He didn't say anything. I'm just gonna keep writing until he says something.
Yeah, I was watching the video that you saw before, the death race or the whatever. So now, picking between these two stories is difficult. They're very different stories. It's a lot easier to judge stories that are similar. But I think the better written one and the one that has the least plot holes definitely has to go to Diray's story. So congratulations, Diray. You won this one. Again.
Thank you.
No prize this time, though, because I don't have any money to give you.
Oh. No $500 Chipotle gift card?
No. I never even. I bought you like
$15 Fortnite card.
I bought you fucking. What did I buy you last time? I bought you.
Totally accurate battle simulator.
Oh yeah, I did buy it. No, I got you total. Yeah, I did get totally that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I played that for way too long.
Brandon, there were a few plot holes that I noticed that
Yeah.
were pretty glaring. The story and concept was very interesting. Also, something that you should definitely do, because you switch perspectives a lot, right? A good way to split perspectives, and it's something that Diray did pretty effectively, is you just sort of fucking tell us, hey, yo, switching perspective. Another way to do it is you like to use 3 asterisks between a piece, or between 2 things, right? So, like, for example, let me pull up a story that I wrote.
I use that for a break of time as well.
Yeah, break of time, I think I have it for Martyr of a Frozen World, maybe? This is what I was fucking writing for a writing competition, and then I ended up participating in. Maybe I don't have one of this, I don't know. I do. You'll, like, break time. It's basically a break. Just 3 asterisks in the middle of the fucking page, right?
Alright.
It's a very good way to break up a story into several perspectives. So, now that we've decided the winner, I would like to discuss the details of the next writing competition that I hope.
No, I'm leaving.
Damn, that fucking blows. So, I had 2 ideas for base concepts, which they're all probably going to be 20-page required again.
Look.
But I'm giving you a month and a half this time. So, don't slack.
This time I'll start early, okay?
I'm mostly Riley definitely needs to start early. So,
Start early and then don't worry about it until right at due date. Let's go. Got it.
Giga.
Yep. So, the 2 ideas I have for base ideas, like concepts-wise, I might also up it to 25 pages. But one is villain as the protagonist, concept 1, base concept that you have to work with. And concept 2 is it has to center around magic, a unique twist on magic.
So it has to be both of those?
One or the other. Or both. Do you want to do it that way?
How do you define magic in this case?
Anything that is not explainable by science. Psychic powers in sci-fi, for example, is one of them.
Psychic powers in sci-fi is magic.
Yep, it's space magic. The Force is magic. I just want a unique take on magic. If you do that one. Or the other one is the protagonist is a villain. Is the villain of the story.
Okay, I could pivot it. Alright.
So, which would you prefer to do?
So something to do with magic or
a unique take on magic.
And then the main character is the villain,
or
is the second
protagonist is the villain.
Or protagonist, yeah.
How unique.
Just like not necessarily the villain. If it's a story without a necessary villain, just the protagonist is not a good person. Is basically what I'm looking for.
Okay. Do we vote on it, or is just like
it's up to y'all? Y'all can discuss it. You guys are the
I'm okay with either one, honestly.
I'm not really into magic. I think if we do the villains one, we have a lot more freedom. Although it's like I don't even know if we have a lot more freedom. I never wrote anything fantasy. But you know what, Optical Riley, you are the final. You're the deciding.
Whoa, hold on.
I never said that it had to be fantasy either. Let me get that straight.
That is true, but I just never wrote anything with magic in it.
Either one. Just pick one.
Hey, yo, Chris.
Yeah?
Flip a coin.
No, I mean,
Lucky?
you can flip the coin, but
I might just make you maybe one or the other. You get to choose one or the other as your concept, base-wise.
Actually, I
Or
think
both.
just being able. Why not just let the writer itself,
I was gonna
so that
say
we
that
let
sounds
each
better.
person pick.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's how we'll do it next time. Gentlemen, you guys have a month and a half starting now.
Yeah, can you define?
Brr.
Can you define more about unique?
Something that I wouldn't expect as a take on Magic. Like,
Damn.
something that I haven't seen before. It doesn't have to be like super like Magic as a disease. That's cool. It's somewhat unique. Spin that in your own way. Magic as scorned, as something that people hate. That's a unique concept. Not a lot of people pull it off, right? However, you get the magic in your in that idea to work.
You know what, Chris? I just realized something. Maybe I've been around Rocket too much because when you said that that's unique, and I'm just like, damn, man, hold on, I've heard that several times, and I realized every single time I've ever heard it, Rocket.
Yeah. Magic as scorned or something like, and they kill all the mages, which is a very Rocket concept, but it's not something. The thing is that you don't see every day, Magic-wise. Like how in Ether we decided to come up with the unique concept of basing magic on the moon, which I've never heard of before. I'm not gonna lie. So that's your concept. Any questions, anyone?
Nope.
Oh, I was streaming. There was a black screen for this entire episode. Great.
Giga Jet.
I'm just gonna leave it like that.